Chapter 1363. The young man's soul was almost shattered. His face was pale as he took a few steps back. It took him a few breaths to react. His face turned green when he realized what had happened. The power of the peak undead stage burst out continuously and rushed toward Murong-Yu like a flood. A terrifying, murderous intent soared into the sky and enveloped the entire courtyard. "Murong-Yu, you're courting death," the young man roared. His large hand formed a claw and viciously clawed at Murong-Yu's head, trying to crush it. Oof. Just as the young man made his move, a cold snort sounded from afar. The voice wasn't loud, so everyone could barely hear it. However, this cold snort sounded like a clap of thunder in the young man's ears. The young man's body trembled violently, and the claw he had extended in midair instantly stopped. The anger on his face instantly disappeared. In fact, Murong-Yu could even see a trace of fear in his eyes. Murong-Yu's pupils abruptly shrank. The person who had made this cold snort must be the person behind a young man, or even his master. From a young man's reaction, it could be seen that this person was definitely very powerful and had a strict rule. Otherwise, the young man wouldn't be so terrified. This person should be a powerhouse in the outer hall, Murong-Yu thought to himself as his eyes scanned the surroundings. However, that person might not even be here, or he might be so powerful that Murong-Yu couldn't detect him. 60 million merit points. We'll take the 10 divine weapons. At this moment, a black shadow tore through the sky from afar and slowly stopped in front of Murong-Yu. It was a jade slip that was similar to an identity token. However, it didn't have a soul imprint, so anyone could use it. There were 60 million merit points stored in it. This was what Murong-Yu saw when he probed it with his divine telekinesis. Murong-Yu wanted to capture the voice, but he still couldn't find anything. The jade slip seemed to have appeared out of thin air. This person was beyond his expectations. He was very powerful. Murong-Yu felt a chill run down his spine. After transferring 60 million tokens to his identity token, Murong-Yu waved his hand and the 10 saint weapons appeared in the void again. The young man stretched out his hand again, wanting to grab the 10 saint artifacts. However, he was once again stopped by Murong-Yu. "Murong-Yu, what is the meaning of this?" The young man's face was gloomy as he spoke word by word. His voice was ice-cold and filled with killing intent. "There's no rush. Let's check the goods first." Murong-Yu smiled faintly before turning to the crowd outside the courtyard. "Everyone, take a look at these sacred artifacts as well." As he spoke, 10 pieces of paper appeared in the sky, fluttering in the wind. These were the blueprints for the 10 saint artifacts. Swish! Murong-Yu's voice hadn't even faded away when a strand of spiritual consciousness shot through the air, quickly entering the sacred artifact. "That's right. This halberd has 4,999 formations. Every array formation is fused together quite smoothly. The appearance of the sacred artifact is exactly the same as the blueprint. It's simply perfect." The young man's face turned uglier and uglier as he spoke. Originally, they wanted to use this opportunity to kill Murong-Yu. However, they didn't expect that they would instead help Murong-Yu and suffer heavy losses. Not only did they lose 60 million merit points, but they also lost the materials that could be used to refine high-grade sacred artifacts. Although these 10 mid-grade sacred artifacts were all of the best quality, they were definitely not worth 60 million merit points. Since they had failed to make things difficult for Murong-Yu, they had indirectly highlighted how powerful he was when it came to refining weapons. This Murong-Yu is really cautious. He allowed so many people to verify these sacred artifacts. In the future, if they want to use the excuse that there's a problem with the sacred artifacts, they will be stopped by him. In the distance, an expert commented when he saw Murong-Yu's actions. On the other hand, some people were looking at Murong-Yu with interest. Some people had ugly expressions. These people were all Outer Palace disciples. Moreover, their statuses were not low. Quite a number of them were Murong-Yu's future enemies. Murong-Yu naturally knew about these people. The reason he had tested the artifacts in public was to let these people see his methods so that they wouldn't dare to act rashly. After a long time, Murong-Yu looked at the young man with a smile and asked, Are there any problems with these sacred artifacts? The young man's expression was very ugly. He wanted to say that there was a problem, but so many people couldn't see any problems. He had seen the arrangement inside the sacred artifacts before. Every single one of them was of the best quality. However, he didn't dare to nod. Once he nodded and said that there was no problem, it would be difficult for them to find trouble with Muronyu in the future. Just as the young man was hesitating, a voice suddenly rang in his ears. Thus, he sighed in relief and said, "There's no problem with these sacred artifacts. Can I take them away now?" Muronyu nodded. Then, the young man put away the 10 sacred artifacts. Then, his figure flashed, and he left the courtyard. Muronyu just smiled. Just as he was about to leave the courtyard and go to the artifact hall, he was stopped by a voice. The words on the flag didn't need to be changed because Muronyu hadn't changed them before. "Muronyu, I have 10 sets of herbs here. If you can refine the elixir we need, you'll get 6 million merit points. Then, each portion will be worth 6 million merit points." A cold voice came from afar. Then, everyone saw a person walk out from the crowd and looked at Muronyu calmly. It was another Outer Palace disciple. The one who refined the artifact failed, and now the one who refined the elixir has appeared. I wonder how they're going to make things difficult for Muronyu. Many servant disciples looked at that person with anticipation. After being played by Muronyu once, they felt that Muronyu was omnipotent in their hearts. It was as if nothing could stop Muronyu. Moreover, Muronyu's alchemy ability was much stronger than his artifact ability. Even the one who refined the artifact couldn't make things difficult for Muronyu. In the end, they went for wool and came home shorn. Hearing this, Muronyu immediately stopped in his tracks and turned his head to look at the arrogant-looking woman in red with a smile. "How much compatibility do you want?" When he saw Muronyu, he didn't ask about the elixir and herbs she wanted to refine. Instead, he directly asked how many elixir fit she wanted. The arrogant, red-clothed woman couldn't help but snort coldly. She looked at Muronyu with a face full of mockery. "Arrogant and ignorant. Do you not know how to write the word death?" The arrogant, red-clothed woman sneered in her heart and mocked Muronyu in her heart. Then, she said, "Aren't you an alchemy grandmaster? 10 types of elixir, a total of 100 pills. All of them must have a compatibility of 90%. If one of the elixir's compatibility is less than 90%, then it will be considered your failure. Then you must cultivate all the herbs and refine elixirs for me for free for 10 years. Hiss! Everyone couldn't help but gasp. Every elixir had a compatibility of 90%. Even Alchemy Grandmaster couldn't do it. Even an Alchemy Saint couldn't be so powerful. As they sucked in a breath of cold air, they turned to look at Muronyu. They all wanted to know if Muronyu would accept this task. However, what made their jaws drop was that Muronyu actually agreed without thinking. "I'll accept this task. However, each elixir is worth 2 million merit points. In other words, a bottle of elixir is worth 20 million merit points. A total of 200 million merit points. 200 million merit points." When they heard Muronyu's words, the surrounding odd job disciples almost fainted. Not to mention 200 million, they might not even be able to gather 10 million merit points in their lifetime. After all, they only had 100,000 years in the true martial temple. Unless they became outer hall disciples. 200 million merit points. The arrogant lady in red frowned, and her face turned cold. "Muronyu, you're too greedy. Aren't you afraid of choking to death? My digestion is very good. Senior sister, you don't have to worry about me. 200 million merit points is a fixed price. If you don't want to, you can go back." The arrogant lady in red was furious. Her murderous intent was overflowing. She even had the thought of killing Muronyu. However, she suppressed it forcefully. However, her knuckles turned white from clenching her fists. It was easy to imagine how furious she was. "Okay, I'll accept it. I'll come and get the elixir in 10 days. The arrogant lady in red said through gritted teeth. At the same time, she threw a storage ring to Muronyu. After Muronyu took the storage ring, he called out to the arrogant lady in red who was about to leave, "Wait, what else do you want?" The arrogant lady in red said through gritted teeth. I've changed the rules. Now, before you find me to refine weapons or elixirs, you must pay half of the merit points first. Otherwise, the arrogant lady in red was so angry that her face was about to change shape. However, she didn't say anything else. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to stop herself from cursing at Muronyu. After she took out her identity token and transferred 100 million merit points to Muronyu, she left angrily. He earned 160 million merit points in less than 2 hours. The servants nearby looked at Muronyu with burning eyes. They were envious and jealous. If senior brother Muronyu can't complete the task, not only will he have to spit out the merit points, he will also become someone else's slave. However, senior brother Muronyu is so confident. He won't fail, right? While everyone was discussing, Muronyu had already flown into the sky and flew towards the artifact hall. Senior brother Muronyu is not using the time to refine the elixir. Instead, he's leaving? What is he doing? He's flying toward the artifact hall. Could it be that he wants to exchange all the merit points and run away? Those outer palace disciples won't let him take half a step out of the true martial temple. No one will do anything to him in the true martial temple. However, if he wants to leave the true martial temple, someone will definitely make a move. One supreme grade saint weapon is worth 1 million merit points. 160 million merit points can be exchanged for 160 supreme grade saint weapons. I wonder if I can break through to the imperishable stage. Chapter 1364. What? You want to use 160 million merit points to exchange for saint artifacts? 160? When Muronyu finished selecting the 160 top-grade saint artifacts, the outer hall disciple from the artifact hall was shocked. It wasn't that he doubted Muronyu didn't have so many saint artifacts, nor did he doubt Murongyu's merit points were obtained through proper channels. He was shocked that Muronyu had exchanged so many top-quality saint artifacts in one go. One had to know that these were top-quality saint artifacts, not low-quality saint artifacts. There were people in the true martial temple who had exchanged a large number of saint artifacts in one go. However, those people were at least inner palace disciples and were extremely powerful. Moreover, they exchanged saint artifacts to distribute to the people in their faction. However, Muronyu was just an outer palace disciple. Why would he exchange for so many saint artifacts? Right now, he was all alone. Is there a rule that says outer palace disciples can't exchange for so many top-quality saint artifacts? Murongyu's face immediately became gloomy. The disciple suddenly woke up and smiled embarrassedly. He said, Junior Muronyu, I can't make this decision. How about this? You wait here for a moment. I need to ask for instructions. With that, he didn't wait for Muronyu to speak and disappeared in a flash. Muronyu didn't say anything about this. After all, the other party really didn't have that authority. Muronyu exchanged 160 top-quality saint artifacts? Approve? Why not approve? Not to mention 160. Even if it was 1,600, we would still give it to him. On a certain floor of the artifact hall, an old man immediately said after hearing the disciple's report, Elder, Muronyu is just an outer palace disciple. He hasn't developed any faction in the true martial temple. Will he take these saint artifacts outside? The disciple thought about it and finally spoke his thoughts. It's fine. It's just a top-quality saint artifact. It's nothing in the holy world. Directly approve it. The old man said indifferently and then directly ordered the disciple to leave. Top-quality saint artifact? What was it used for? I'm a little curious about this kid. After the disciple left, a figure slowly appeared in the void. If Muronyu was here, he would definitely recognize that this person was the old man who had given him a token in the Merit Palace Hall. Old Man Su, guess what Muronyu is going to do with these saint artifacts? The elder from the artifact hall asked Su. Su was the old man who had given Muronyu an identity token. Muronyu is not only an alchemy grandmaster, he is also a blacksmith grandmaster. He probably wanted to study the saint artifact. I've underestimated this kid. I didn't expect him to have such a heaven-defying ability. Every single mid-grade sacred artifact has 4,999 magic arrays. TSK. Let alone those flutes from the outer palace. Even the artifact craftsman from the inner palace cannot do something like this. I'm curious to see what level he can reach in the future, Suhai said with a smile. He was the elder of the artifact hall. Su smiled. The true martial temple is one of the two most powerful holy lands of the human clan. Although we're powerful, artifact crafting and alchemy have always been our shortcomings. If Murong you can really grow, we have a chance to become the #1 cultivation holy land of the human clan. Suhai looked at Su. So, you want Murong you to enter the inner palace to cultivate? Su shook her head. I did have this idea at the beginning. However, Murong you clearly has his own plans. I don't even know where he threw my identity token away. Suhai laughed. Only that brat Murong you would directly ignore you. If he finds out about your identity, what? Murong you exchanged 160 saint artifacts and gave them to him directly in the artifact hall. By the time Murong you returned to his courtyard on the Yangwu Peak, the news of him exchanging for 160 top-quality saint artifacts had already spread. For a moment, countless people began to discuss it. They all wanted to know what Murong Yu was going to do with these saint artifacts. Moreover, ever since Murong Yu returned to his courtyard, he never came out again. This naturally negated the possibility of selling these sacred artifacts to the outside world. 1 million merit points can be exchanged for a top-grade saint artifact. However, the middle-grade saint artifact that Murong Yu refined before was worth 6 million merit points? Could it be that the middle-grade saint artifact that he refined is more powerful than the top-grade saint artifact? Someone was immediately puzzled. It's definitely not as powerful as a top-grade saint artifact. However, the research value of the saint artifact refined by Murong Yu is far higher than its practical value. Think about it. If they can research Murong Yu's saint artifact and refine top-grade, and even saint-grade saint artifacts in the future, they'll be able to reach the limit of the formation. Then, they'll make a lot of money. While everyone was discussing, there were a few people on a certain mountain peak in the outer hall with gloomy faces. Most of these formations are offensive formations. Some of them are defensive, spirit-gathering, and other formations. This technique is quite ordinary. The combination and arrangement of the formations are also quite ordinary. However, how can Murong Yu combine them to the limit? An expert looked at the other people in the main hall with a gloomy face. There was some doubt in his eyes. The other people shook their heads. They had been studying for a long time. However, they didn't gain anything. They even imitated the combination and arrangement of Murong Yu's formations. However, at the 4,999 array formations on the ground, it exploded. Every single one of them had failed at least 10 times. Is it really a matter of talent? A blacksmith master suddenly said. The others immediately looked at each other, and their faces were a little ugly. They were all arrogant and thought that they were better than others. They couldn't tolerate others surpassing them. Moreover, as long as Murong Yu could refine a top-grade saint artifact and become a blacksmith master, they would have no business. Once Murong Yu became a blacksmith master, they would probably starve to death. This guy can't be left alive. A blacksmith master's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Therefore, a conspiracy to deal with Murong Yu began to brew. At this moment, Murong Yu was already sitting cross-legged in the Hichu Luoshu world. The 160 top-grade saint artifacts that he exchanged in the artifact hall were floating above his head, emitting an extremely powerful aura. More than 100 top-grade saint artifacts should be enough for me to break through to the imperishable stage, right? Murong Yu thought, but he wasn't sure. He had a feeling that it wouldn't be so easy for him to break through to the imperishable stage. Shaking his head, Murong Yu got rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind. Then, he opened his mouth and sucked. The 20 top-grade saint artifacts were swallowed into his stomach, and then into the chaos furnace. Chaos furnace smelt. Murong Yu moved his mind. Suddenly, the primal chaos furnace in his body shook slightly. In the blink of an eye, the 20 top-grade Saint artifacts were all refined, turning into a pure torrent of energy that poured into Murong Yu's body. In the next moment, Murong Yu's realm began to rise rapidly. Fourth Order Undead Realm, Mid-Fourth Order Undead Realm, Peak Fourth Order Undead Realm. In less than a few breaths, Murong Yu had already seen the invisible barrier of the Fifth Order Undead Realm. Under the impact of the huge power, this invisible barrier was like a thin film that was directly torn to pieces. Fifth Order Undead Realm. After the breakthrough, there was still a part of the power of the 20 top-grade Saint artifacts. Therefore, Murong Yu's strength didn't stop at all and continued to soar crazily. However, the gap between the Fifth Order and the Fourth Order was too big. The huge power was quickly absorbed, and Murong Yu's realm only reached the peak of the early Fifth Order Undead Realm. After using a day to consolidate his current realm, Murong Yu opened his mouth again and swallowed 40 top-grade Saint artifacts. His realm soared again. Sixth Order Undead Realm. Seventh Order Undead Realm. Peak Seventh Order Undead Realm. After Murong Yu swallowed 150 top-grade Saint artifacts, his realm only rose to the peak of the Seventh Order Undead Realm. 150 top-grade Saint artifacts only raised Murong Yu from the Fourth Order Undead Realm to the peak of the Seventh Order Undead Realm. 3 small realms. Murong Yu is a bottomless black hole. Although his strength was constantly improving, but every time he consumed a top-grade Saint artifact, Murong Yu would have a toothache. Who wouldn't have a toothache? Right now, he was only in the undead realm. As long as he had the ability, top-grade Saint artifacts were not a problem. But what if he needed ancestral artifacts and chaos ancestral artifacts in the future? Or even supreme artifacts? Where would he find so many Saint artifacts to devour? However, Murong Yu also discovered that, in addition to directly improving his realm, this power also had a certain tempering effect on his physical body. But it was even more difficult to improve his physical body. If he didn't have a secret place like the Heavenly Fire Space, it wouldn't be so easy for his physical body to break through to the mid-grade Saint artifact level. However, cultivating his soul, cultivation, and physical body at the same time, although the cultivation speed was somewhat slow, Murong Yu's strength was much stronger than that of undead realm powerhouses in the same realm. With his current strength, he didn't need to use soul attacks to easily kill powerhouses in the undead realm. If he used soul attacks, even low-rank profound sages could be easily killed. Soul, cultivation, and physical body, these 3 aspects combined. Even peak profound sages could be killed. If Murong Yu went to kill Blood Rain Ancestor at this time, it wouldn't be so difficult at all. Moreover, he didn't need to put him into the Hichu Luo Shu to kill him. Let's refine pills first. After getting another 100 million merit points, I can exchange them for 100 top-grade Saint artifacts. At that time, I should be able to raise my cultivation to the peak of the 8th Order Undead Realm. After consolidating his cultivation and strength, Murong Yu was ready to start refining pills. At this time, 8 days had passed in the outside world, and there were only 2 days left before the deadline. In 2 days, would Murong Yu be able to refine 100 pills with 90% compatibility? Chapter 1365. In fact, Murong Yu was not worried about the alchemy task this time. If it was alchemy, he might not have much confidence. But alchemy, with his skills, the alchemy pills could almost reach 90% compatibility. Even if he could not achieve 90% compatibility for every pill, didn't he still have the Yin Yang Cauldron? Murong Yu had used the Yin Yang Cauldron to refine many pills before. The lowest compatibility was 90%, and the highest compatibility was 99%. It was almost 100% compatibility. It was because of the Yin Yang Cauldron that Murong Yu could improve his cultivation first. 10 days are almost up. I wonder if senior brother Murong Yu will be able to refine those elixirs. It is said that the pills he refined are all high-grade sage pills. Although those pills were provided with pill recipes, they were extremely difficult to refine. Even an alchemy grandmaster would find it difficult to refine them in a short time. Don't worry, there is still half a day before the deadline. There will be results then. However, how did senior brother Morong you refine the sage weapons and pills? Even the heaven and earth vision was covered up? Maybe there's a powerful sage weapon that covered up all of this. Or maybe Morong you has a space treasure. Is he refining in the space treasure? Whoosh! At the last moment, Morong you stepped out of the void and stood in the courtyard. Morong you finally came out. Did you refine the pills successfully? The arrogant woman in red walked over and looked at Morong you indifferently. However, it might be because she had learned her lesson from the young man last time. Although the woman in red was still arrogant, her tone was still full of disdain. However, she did not say that she wanted Morong you to be her slave or anything like that. Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. There are a total of 100 pills in the 10 bottles. The compatibility is 90%. As he spoke, Morong you waved his hand, and 10 bottles of pills appeared in front of the arrogant woman in red. Morong yu's mind moved, and the corks of the 10 bottles popped out. Rumble, bursts of incomparably powerful aura swept out like a torrent, accompanied by dazzling holy light that soared into the sky. In just an instant, the entire Yangwu Peak was enveloped by the rich medicinal fragrance. Moreover, the incomparably rich fragrance quickly spread even further. At this moment, all the saints who smelled this fragrance felt their pores open up. Waves of inexplicable yet powerful energy kept seeping into their pores. It entered their skin, blood, and meridians. At this moment, they felt their strength slowly increase. It was to the extent where some cultivation realms that had been stagnant for a long time began to stir, actually about to break through. The arrogant red-clothed woman's expression changed slightly. With a wave of her small hand, the corks of the 10 bottles were put back in. However, although the core halo and the enormous aura had disappeared, the rich medicinal fragrance lingered for a long time. The arrogant red-clothed woman did not need to check at all to be sure that these pills had reached a 90% compatibility. This was because only pills that had reached a 90% compatibility would emit a halo. These 100 pills all emitted halos of varying strength. Here's 100 million merit points. The arrogant red-clothed woman threw a jade slip to Morong you. At the same time, after leaving a cold sentence, she soared into the sky and disappeared from the courtyard. Refining weapons and refining pills can't make things difficult for him. Instead, it made him famous. That plan has to be carried out in advance. Otherwise, once Morong you grows, we won't have a foothold in the true martial sacred hall. Moreover, we've dealt with him time and time again. I'm afraid he's already bearing a grudge against us. On one of the mountain peaks far away from Yangwu Peak, a few men and women stood there, all of them looking at Yangwu Peak with sinister expressions. The more glorious Morong you was, the more heaven-defying his abilities were, the greater the threat he posed to them. Now, they were ready to directly eliminate Morong you. As soon as he transferred 200 million merit points to his identity token, Morong you felt several gazes with strong killing intent on him. Morong you looked over, but he only saw a few shadows that had faded. However, although he did not see who those people were, he vaguely guessed that they were from the outer hall. Moreover, they were either alchemists or weapon refiners. This was because his rise would only conflict with these people's interests. However, no matter how strong they were, Morong you was not afraid. On the contrary, Morong you hoped that they would come to find trouble with him. In his eyes, those people were here to give him treasures and merit points. Morong you was about to exchange all 100 million merit points for a supreme grade saint weapon. However, at this moment, the odd job disciples who were originally surrounding his courtyard turned around and left one after another. In fact, Morong you even felt an extremely powerful aura shoot out from the true martial sacred hall and fly into the distance. What's the situation? When Morong you was about to find someone to ask, Fan Jian flew in from outside and landed in front of Morong you. Morong you, not long ago, a saint tomb appeared in the Black Dragon Holy Empire. It is said that it is the saint tomb of an ancient almighty. There are all kinds of treasures, saint weapons, and magic treasures from ancient times. There are even all kinds of powerful cultivation methods. Now, many people are rushing to the Black Dragon Holy Empire from all directions. Fan Jian's face was filled with excitement as he shared all the information he had obtained. Fortunately, Morong Yu is a powerful saint. Otherwise, he would not know what Fan Jian was talking about. The saint tomb of an ancient almighty appeared in the Black Dragon Holy Empire? Does our true martial sacred hall have an expert to lead a team? Morong Yu frowned and asked. You can go anywhere. The true martial sacred hall will also have an expert to lead team. However, we are only odd job disciples. Those experts will not take us there. Fan Jian shook his head and said regretfully, in that case, we will go there by ourselves. Morong Yu pondered for a moment before coming to a decision. Wait for me here. I'll be right back. Morong Yu previously understood that even the trashiest peerless saint weapon required 100 million merit points. Morong Yu is now close to the undead stage. If he only relied on refining weapons and pills, when would he be able to gather 100 million merit points? Moreover, he needed more than 1 or 2 items. Although it was easy to get 200 million merit points now. But this was because the outer hall disciples went for wool and came home shorn. How could there be such a good thing in the future? Moreover, the other refiners and alchemists would definitely suppress him. At that time, whether he would be able to get missions for refining weapons and pills would be a problem. Therefore, this time, he must go to the Saint Tomb of the Black Dragon Holy Empire. After saying that, he had already soared into the sky and quickly disappeared from Fan Jian's sight. 100 million merit points. Morong Yu did not leave a single one behind. They were all exchanged for peerless saint weapons. Peak of the Undead Stage 8. After Morong Yu smelted 80 peerless saint weapons, Morong Yu reached the peak of the Undead Stage 8. Now he only had 30 peerless saint weapons left, which was not enough to raise his strength to the Undead Stage 9. However, Morong Yu still suppressed his realm to the peak of the Undead Stage 4. He had already shocked the true martial temple in terms of alchemy and refining weapons. And if his speed of improvement was also so terrifying, as the saying goes, a tall tree attracts the wind, and a tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Morong Yu did not want to die prematurely. Exchanging for saint weapons and improving his realm. It seemed to take a long time, but it was less than half a day, because time was accelerated when he cultivated. Fan Jian, take this peerless saint weapon. After Morong Yu came out, he handed a saint weapon to Fan Jian. Fan Jian was shocked and hurriedly refused. How can this be? You use your merit points to exchange for it. I'll just use a mid-grade saint weapon. Just take it. This trip to the Black Dragon Holy Empire is full of danger. If you're not strong enough, you'll die easily. At worst, you can give me more treasures. Morong Yu said in a deep voice. Although Fan Jian's friendship was not deep, he was the only one in the true martial temple that he had a good relationship with. Moreover, Morong Yu intended to develop him into one of his people. He did not want this guy to die. Fan Jian was silent for a moment, but he finally took the peerless saint weapon. Then, he left the true martial temple with Morong Yu and flew in the direction of the Black Dragon Empire. Morong Yu, why do I feel a little uneasy, as if someone is following us? After leaving the true martial temple, Fan Jian suddenly stopped and said. Morong Yu smiled faintly. It's okay, just a few juniors. Morong Yu's soul was extremely powerful, and his mind was much stronger than Fan Jian's. He had long discovered that someone was following them. Moreover, these people have been following them since the true martial temple. Not bad. You two ants can actually discover that we're following you. Killing you won't be a disgrace to the swords in our hands. An indifferent voice came from afar. 3 silhouettes streaked across the sky from a distance behind them. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived in front of Morong Yu and Jian Wushuang. Your outer palace disciples? Fan Jian's face suddenly changed, and he shouted coldly again. The true martial temple forbids killing each other. You dare to kill us. Aren't you afraid of being executed by the punishment hall? Every day, countless disciples of the true martial temple who are outside are killed. Who knows who killed them? You're the same. Enough nonsense. Quickly hand over your storage rings and various treasures. Don't waste my time going to the Black Dragon Holy Empire. I can give you a quick death. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead. A mere odd job disciple dares to challenge an outer palace disciple. You really don't know life from death. An outer palace disciple said indifferently. He was quite impatient, and his killing intent was overflowing. Chapter 1366. Just as that person was about to attack, another person stepped forward and said to Fan Jian, "We only want to kill Muronyu. You can get out of the way. We won't kill you." However, his eyes were filled with mockery as he looked at Muronyu. He seemed to be mocking Muronyu to see if Fan Jian was of the same mind as him to resist them together. The others also looked at Muronyu with mockery. They were quite confident that Fan Jian would definitely leave. After all, no one wanted to die. Fan Jian looked at the three outer palace disciples with a hint of joy on his face. "If I leave, you really won't kill me?" An outer palace disciple in gray frowned impatiently. "Cut the crap. Get out of the way. Otherwise, I'll kill you too." Fan Jian immediately looked pleasantly surprised. I'll leave. As he spoke, he had already taken a step forward and was about to leave. Seeing this, the mockery on the faces of the three outer palace disciples became even more intense. However, Muronyu still had a smile on his face. It seemed that he was not angry or disappointed by Fan Jian's betrayal. Without absolute strength. So what if you're a genius in refining weapons and alchemy? Do you really think that anyone will be willing to follow you? An outer palace disciple laughed disdainfully. His eyes were filled with coldness. Is that so? Before he could finish his sentence, a voice rang in his ears. Then, with his swoosh, a ball of sword light appeared out of nowhere. It tore through the void and quickly slashed toward his head. "You're courting death." The outer palace disciple's strength was at the peak of the undead stage. After a moment of absent-mindedness, he had already reacted. With a furious roar, his figure flashed, and he retreated violently. During this process, his big hand was like a claw, grabbing at the sword light that was tearing through the void. Clang! After a crisp sound, a holy long sword that was emitting holy light was caught in the void by the outer palace disciple. It could not move at all. Streams of energy flowed in the outer palace disciple's palm, forming a miniature shield. No matter how fierce the long sword was, it could not pierce through the outer palace disciple's energy shield. It could not slash down. On the other side of the sword was Fan Jian, who had a wicked smile on his face. At this moment, his face was cold as an extremely powerful energy erupted from his body. He poured it into his other fist and ruthlessly punched at the outer palace disciple's head. Reckless fool! The outer palace disciple harumphed coldly as he unleashed a burst of energy from his palm. With a bang, the supreme quality saint artifact in Fan Jian's hand was sent flying. As for Fan Jian, the webbing between his thumb and forefinger had ruptured, and his entire palm had almost been shattered. If he hadn't let go of it quickly, it would have been shattered. A top-grade saint artifact. That outer hall disciple's eyes flashed with a blazing light. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the long sword that had been sent flying. His other hand broke through the void and pressed on Fan Jian's chest. Bang! Fan Jian's physical body was immediately shattered. Whoosh! At the same time that Fan Jian was crushed, his top-grade sacred artifact also disappeared. That outer palace disciple's hand grabbed nothing but air. "This sword doesn't belong to you." A faint voice was heard. When the three outer palace disciples saw Muronyu looking at them with a smile on his face, they couldn't help but frown. The pupils of the outer palace disciple who had smashed Fan Jian's body to pieces suddenly shrank. Previously, he had used 80% of his speed to grab the long sword. However, Muronyu had taken the long sword first. Didn't that mean that Muronyu's speed was faster than his? This is impossible. The outer palace disciple sneered in his heart. He took a step forward and threw a punch at Muronyu. Muronyu did not make a move. He only took a step back. He dodged the outer palace disciples' attack and said coldly, "Who are you? Who ordered you to kill me? Die." The outer palace disciple who had attacked roared and threw another punch at Murongyu. "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Murongyu sneered and poured the power in his body into the long sword in his hand. Suddenly, the long sword burst out with holy light, and hundreds of millions of sword radiances tore out. In just an instant, the outer palace disciple was drowned in countless sword radiances. An extremely shrill scream was heard from afar. Accompanying the shrill scream was a cloud of blood mist that soared into the sky. "What's going on?" At that moment, Fan Jian and the other two outer palace disciples who had reformed their bodies looked at the scene in shock. They did not even have time to react. After a while, the two outer palace disciples finally reacted. One of them roared, and his body turned into a stream of light as he charged at Murongyu. The other outer palace disciple took out a sacred artifact. It was like a sacred mountain that pressed down, wanting to kill Murongyu. Murongyu sneered and retreated in a flash. He directly avoided the attacks of the two outer palace disciples. At that moment, the hundreds of millions of sword radiances that had been transformed disappeared. Then, there was no more then. The outer palace disciple had already turned into a cloud of blood mist. He could not be more dead. "How dare you kill an outer palace disciple? You're really courting death." The two outer palace disciples were stunned, but they quickly reacted. With a roar, they both charged at Murongyu. "I'll send you to accompany me." Murongyu sneered. He took a step forward and slashed out with his sword. At that moment, Fan Jian saw a scene that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Murongyu, who was only in rank 4 Undying Realm, split the two outer palace disciples in half with one slash. After the two outer palace disciples were split in half, they fell directly to the ground and lay motionless. There was no sign of life. They could not be more dead. Dead. After a long time, Fan Jian finally reacted. He stared blankly at Murongyu. "Dead." Murongyu nodded and threw Fan Jian's long sword to him at the same time. Fan Jian silently put the long sword back into his body. "How did you kill them?" "With the long sword in your hand." Murongyu grinned. Fan Jian rolled his eyes. Of course, he knew that the three people were killed by his long sword. However, he knew that the long sword was not so powerful. "Murongyu, you could actually kill these three people so easily. They were all in rank 4 Undying Realm, right? That is to say, you can kill rank 4 Undying Realm experts?" Fan Jian suddenly exclaimed, looking very astonished. Murongyu shook his head and smiled faintly. "I just relied on the power of the best holy weapon." It was not that Murongyu did not want to tell Fan Jian. His true strength could not be easily revealed. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble, and those big troubles might be something that he could not solve at his current stage. However, Fan Jian did not believe it. However, he was also a sensible person, so he did not ask anymore. However, in the future, he continued to study how he could use the least amount of power to unleash the greater power of the Saint artifact. Not to mention, after a long time, Fan Jian's strength soared many times because of this. He was extremely powerful. After plundering the storage rings and other treasures of the three outer palace disciples, Murongyu burned their corpses and destroyed the corpses. Fan Jian, now the outer palace disciples of true martial temple have begun to deal with me directly. As long as I am not in true martial temple, my situation will be very dangerous. Your life will be in danger if you follow me. You and I will part here. Murongyu admired Fan Jian very much, but he still said to him. Fan Jian shook his head. If I were that kind of person, I would have left directly instead of choosing to attack. Once I attacked, it means that I have made up my mind. Murongyu, you are a genius in refining weapons and alchemy. Although my aptitude is not bad, if there is no miracle or great opportunity, I will be mediocre for the rest of my life. I have a premonition that you will have great achievements in the future. If I were to follow you, I might be able to ascend to the heavens as well, and achieve great things as well. So, Murongyu, let me follow you. Fan Jian's words were a little vague, but he had already expressed his position to Murongyu. It was equivalent to swearing loyalty to Murongyu. Good. Murongyu patted Fan Jian's shoulder. Soon, you will know how correct your choice today is. As long as I don't die, your future achievements will not be bad. Murongyu's words were full of confidence, and he indeed had this confidence. Whether it was the cultivation world, the immortal world, or the immortal world, which one of his followers did not have great achievements? Murongyu treated each and every one of them fairly well. Even those who had their souls violently controlled by him were the same. The true martial Holy Empire was extremely vast. It was more than 10 times stronger than the first Holy Empire that Murongyu encountered after ascending, the Nine-In Holy Empire. After all, the Holy Master of the Nine-In Holy Empire was only a slightly stronger primal chaos ancestor sage. But the expert behind the true martial temple was a supreme. The true martial Holy Empire was a holy empire controlled by the true martial temple. In the past, Murongyu had used a few months to cross the entire Nine-In Holy Empire. But now, he had already left the true martial Holy Empire's territory in a few days. This was because in the beginning, Murongyu did not have the qualifications to use some of the more distant transportation arrays. But now that he was a servant disciple of the true martial temple, he could use many transportation arrays that he could not use before. In addition, Fan Jian was very familiar with this area, so he had already entered the Seven Stars Holy Empire. However, after entering the Seven Stars Holy Empire, their speed slowed down, but it was still much faster than when Murongyu had not joined the true martial temple. But it would still take a long time to reach the Black Dragon Holy Empire, because the distance between them was too far. Chapter 1367. Longxing Holy Empire, Holy Capital, Teleportation Array. The teleportation array constantly flickered, and figures stepped out of it, rushing over from all directions. Among them, 5 disciples wearing the robes of the true martial temple were among the countless people. Murongyu has already left the holy capital. One of the 5 people swept out with his divine sense and found traces of Murongyu. But Murongyu had already left a few days ago. A mere odd-job disciple is actually so fast. Another person frowned, feeling somewhat unhappy. These days, they had been tracking Murongyu, but they were always slower than Murongyu and simply couldn't catch up. It should be known that after learning that the 3 Outer Hall disciples had been killed, they had already set out to hunt down Murongyu. However, Murongyu seemed to have foreseen it and was always one step ahead of them. It doesn't matter, they must have gone to the Black Dragon Holy Empire. We'll go directly to the Holy Tomb and wait for him. This little bastard actually made us profound sages chase him for so many days without any problems. When the time comes, don't fight with me. I'll kill him with my own hands. Profound sages. They were all powerhouses of the profound sage realm. It seemed that after Murongyu killed the 3 undead stage Outer Hall disciples, those who wanted to kill him had begun to pay attention to him. Moreover, it was precisely because of this that those people wanted to kill Murongyu before he grew up. After all, once this kind of person grew up, he would be extremely terrifying. He definitely wouldn't think that his identity token would have the ability to be tracked. The 5 profound sage stage Outer Hall disciples sneered and stepped into the teleportation array, rushing directly to the Black Dragon Empire. Fan Jian, what's going on with the Holy Tomb? At this time, Murongyu had already left the Longxing Holy Empire and was flying in the sky of a certain holy empire. It couldn't be helped. The teleportation array between holy empires was definitely not something that undead sages like them were qualified to use. Therefore, every time they went to another holy empire, they had to rely on their flying ability. It said that the primordial Almighty was a supreme being level expert. No one knows how he died. And not long ago, his Saint Tomb suddenly appeared. In less than a day, the news spread throughout the human territory. However, I reckon that even the demon race and the sacred race have already received the news. Sovereign's Holy Tomb, Moron Yu frowned slightly. If that saint tomb was really the tomb of a supreme, there would definitely be a lot of people fighting over it. Perhaps even the supremes of the holy world would take action. After all supreme beings had supreme being weapons, and his collection would make other supreme beings jealous. Most importantly, if I can get my hands on that supreme saint godhead, whether it was in the divine world or the holy world, both godheads and saint godheads could be refined. However, under normal circumstances, no one would refine a saint godhead or godhead. Because of the grade of the saint godhead and godhead you refined, your cultivation base would be stuck at that level, and you wouldn't be able to advance any further. For example, if a great saint refined an undying realm saint godhead, then his cultivation base would be stuck at the undying realm, and he wouldn't be able to advance any further, unless that person's aptitude was limited, and he could only refine a saint godhead. But the supreme saint godhead was different. There were only 10 supreme beings in the entire holy world. Moreover, it was said that there were less than 10 supreme beings. If one could refine a supreme saint godhead, then they could become a supreme being. For example, if someone in the true martial temple could refine the supreme saint godhead, then the true martial temple would have 2 supreme beings. A sect with 2 supreme beings was definitely the strongest sect in the holy world. Therefore, even a cultivation holy ground like the true martial temple would be tempted by the saint tomb. Taking a step back, even if there was no saint godhead in the saint tomb, if there was a supreme artifact, one had to know that a supreme artifact was equivalent to a supreme being. If the supreme artifact's full power was unleashed, it would surpass the chaos ancestor realm. If that's the case, the danger this time is even greater. It won't be easy to reap the benefits. Moron Yu frowned slightly and said in a low voice. Fan Jian nodded, but he wasn't depressed. After all, he wasn't thinking of getting any treasures from the saint tomb. He was just there to join the fun. Of course, it would be better if he could get some treasures. The closer they got to the Black Dragon Holy Country, the more people Moron Yu's group came across. Even some of the transmission arrays that had not been used in the past had not stopped emitting light. There were even true saints among the weaker ones, and Moron Yu had no idea what cultivation realm the stronger ones were at. Looking from afar, the light emitted from their bodies was extremely intense. Black Dragon Holy Country, Black Dragon City. The Black Dragon City was the Black Dragon Holy Country's holy capital. It was huge and prosperous. When Moron Yu stepped out of the transmission array, he was stunned. It wasn't because of the Black Dragon City's magnificence. Relatively speaking, the true martial holy country's holy capital was much bigger than the Black Dragon Holy Country's holy capital. He was stunned by the people in the Black Dragon City. The huge city was densely packed with people. Looking from afar, rays of light soared into the sky. An incomparably vast pressure suppressed the entire holy capital. The light of power, the black light of star-level villains, and the white light of good people. There were even intertwining auras left in the void. Asterisk, rumble. Asterisk at this moment, a loud sound came from afar. Caught unprepared, Moron Yu and Fan Jian were both forced to take a step back. The terrifying impact came from afar, causing their chi and blood to surge like a raging sea. The buildings in front of them collapsed from the impact. Countless people were sent flying, and some were even sent flying with blood spurting out of their mouths. At the same time, in the center of the city, a huge mushroom cloud soared into the sky. Moron Yu's divine sense immediately spread out, and he saw 2 people standing in the center of the city, looking at each other with killing intent. All the buildings within a radius of 10,000 miles around them had been shattered into dust. There were many corpses lying around them, and some of them only left behind clouds of blood. When he saw the 2 people, Moron Yu's pupil shrank. The light of power on the 2 people was extremely strong, and it was even many times stronger than the light on Huang Shi and the others in the heavenly fire space. Moron Yu vaguely guessed that Huang Shi and the others should be experts on the level of ancestor sages. The aura from the 2 people was much stronger than Huang Shi and the others. Ancestor sages of primal chaos. Murong Yu exclaimed inwardly. How dare you harm the innocent in the holy capital? You deserve to die. As soon as the mushroom cloud soared into the sky, a deep voice came from the Black Dragon Holy Nation's imperial palace. Then a huge hand appeared out of thin air above the 9 heavens, and it came crashing down. At this moment, all the cultivators in the Black Dragon City felt an irresistible sense of powerlessness rising from their hearts. The huge hand was like a huge sacred mountain that came crashing down, intimidating all the worlds of the universe. This was because the huge hand didn't erupt with a powerful aura, and it was only targeting the 2 people fighting. If the huge hand was looking at the entire Black Dragon City, the entire city would be crushed to dust. Countless saints would be killed. Whoosh, whoosh. The moment the 2 ancestor sages of primal chaos saw the huge hand appear, their expressions changed drastically, and they shot in different directions at the same time. Even the 2 ancestor sages of primal chaos fled at once. So how strong was the person who attacked? Could it be a supreme? Murong Yu's expression changed slightly. Dying. At the same time that the 2 people were running away, the low voice from before was heard again. Murong Yu saw the huge hand in the sky shake violently, shattering the void, and appearing above one of the people's heads in a flash. Then it came crashing down. The ancestor sages of primal chaos didn't even have time to react before the huge hand slapped him. In just an instant, the ancestor sages of primal chaos physical body was beaten into a bloody mist. Whoosh! At the same time, the ancestor sages of primal chaos soul rushed out, toward the void, and fled into the distance. At this moment, many people in the Black Dragon City felt their souls suddenly tremble for no reason, as if they had seen a superior. They couldn't help but tremble. Even Murong Yu's soul trembled slightly, and a dangerous aura seeped out from the depths of his soul. It was a pressure from the soul. A saint of soul. Murong Yu was shocked. His soul had reached the 2-star 6th firmament, so even a primal chaos ancestor sages of primal chaos couldn't make his soul feel threatened. Only a saint of soul, and one whose soul was stronger than his, would feel this way. Murong Yu knew that a saint of soul had made a move. Sure enough, when the ancestor sages of primal chaos soul fled, Murong Yu heard his soul let out a shrill and terrified cry. Murong Yu even saw the soul of that powerhouse being grabbed by an invisible hand and pulled directly toward the Black Dragon City's imperial palace. The person who had made a move was a primal chaos ancestor sages of soul. Such an expert would probably even have the strength to fight against a supreme being, right? The other primal chaos ancestor sages must die. This thought flashed through Murong Yu's mind. However, he noticed that the primal chaos ancestor sages of the Black Dragon Holy Empire no longer attacked the other powerhouse after devouring the soul of one primal chaos ancestor sages. At this moment, the powerhouse had already fled the Black Dragon City. Swish! Just as Murong Yu was puzzled, a giant axe that gave Murong Yu a familiar feeling rose from the Black Dragon City and slashed at the fleeing primal chaos ancestor sages. Little Lowly. When Murong Yu saw the giant axe, the image of little Lowly appeared in his mind. Chapter 1368. It was little Lowly's giant axe that was slashing toward the primal chaos ancestor sage. If the giant axe could be identical, little Lowly's soft scolding confirmed Murong Yu's guess. He extended his divine thought and saw little Lowly soaring into the sky. Murong Yu couldn't help but shake his head. Little Lowly's giant axe could ignore power, but with her undead realm strength, she could barely kill an undead realm expert. And the one who escaped was a primal chaos ancestor sage. Even if the giant axe could ignore power, it was impossible to kill the primal chaos ancestor sage. Even if the primal chaos ancestor sage stood there and let little Lowly slash at him, little Lowly couldn't kill him. Therefore, Murong Yu just shook his head and felt that little Lowly couldn't kill that expert. However, the next moment, little Lolita's actions caused his jaw to drop. Little Loli's giant axe was extremely fast. It struck the primal chaos ancestral saint almost as soon as it was unleashed. And the primal chaos ancestor sage didn't even have time to react before he was killed by little Loli's giant axe. Even his soul was destroyed. He couldn't be any more dead. Yu's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Since when was little Loli so fierce? Even the primal chaos ancestor sage was killed by her giant axe? No, little Loli definitely doesn't have such strength. Could it be that someone is secretly helping her? But her method is too clever and it's hard for others to notice? Yu thought in his heart and directly denied the possibility of little Loli killing the primal chaos ancestor sage alone. After 2 primal chaos ancestor sages were killed one after another, Black Dragon City finally quieted down. And those who were originally restless also stopped thinking about it. Anyone who fights in Black Dragon City will be killed without mercy. A deep voice came from afar with boundless killing intent, intimidating countless experts in Black Dragon City. Now, no one would dare to fight in Black Dragon City. Even the primal chaos ancestor sage was killed. If others dared to fight, wouldn't they be courting death? However, after calming down, they became curious about the identity of the powerhouse and the little Loli. Some people guessed that the expert who acted earlier might be the Holy Lord of the Black Dragon Holy Empire or a peak expert of the Black Dragon Holy Empire. As for the little Loli, however, no one knew her identity. Even Yu was suspicious of the little Loli's identity. Little Loli's background was very deep, and after this matter, Yu knew that little Loli must have a special relationship with this Black Dragon Holy Empire's Holy Lord or some high level. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made a move here, and the experts of the Black Dragon Holy Empire wouldn't have stopped either. Let's go to the Black Dragon mountain range. Yu woke Fan Jian up from his shock and said at the same time. Fan Jian nodded and was about to leave the Black Dragon City. After all, the Saint Tomb was not in the Black Dragon City, but in the depths of the Black Dragon mountain range near the city. There were probably more people there. However, just as they were about to leave, a figure stepped out of the void. Looking at the little Loli carrying the giant axe, Fan Jian was stunned. He knew that the primal chaos ancestor sage was killed by the giant axe. At that time, he thought that the owner of the giant axe was a 30 feet tall giant. At the very least, it was a man. He definitely didn't think that such a giant axe would belong to a little Loli. Therefore, he was shocked at the first moment. However, what was even more shocking was behind the scenes, because he found that Yu was very familiar with this little Loli. Big Baddie, why are you here? Little Loli stood in the air and looked at Yu with a smile. Yu's face darkened. I can't come. Of course you can, but this time, many experts are attacking the Saint Tomb. With your strength, you'll only be sending yourself to death. Little Loli said with a smile. Yu's face darkened even more. Little Loli was purely here to attack him, right? However, he didn't care. Unless those super experts attacked him and he couldn't resist, he was still confident that he could survive. All right, since you're here, then the world's unparalleled beauty will protect you. Little Loli patted her shriveled chest and promised. Hearing little Loli's words, Fan Jian was stunned again. The fact that little Loli was a super expert was already beyond his expectations, but he could still accept it. After all, there were so many people in the Holy Realm, and some of them had special fetishes. For example, there were people who liked to dress up as little Lolis and act cute. However, he didn't think that little Loli, a super expert, didn't even have the demeanor of an expert. She was actually so narcissistic. What Fan Jian didn't know was that little Loli was indeed a little girl. Yu cast a sideways glance at the little Loli. Just as he was about to speak, the little Loli spoke up again. Ha! Big Baddie, I'm already at the undead stage, but you're still at the undead stage. Imperishable stage? Fan Jian's mind went blank. When did the undead stage become so strong? Although he couldn't see what realm the expert that little Loli killed was, he was definitely stronger than the undead stage by countless times. Morongyu is abnormal, so his friends must also be abnormal. After being confused, this thought appeared in Fan Jian's mind. Let's talk about it. After all, the things that Morongyu did these days had already shocked him to the point that he was numb. Morongyu looked at little Lowly and said indifferently, "Realm doesn't equal strength. If you used your own strength to kill that expert just now, then you're definitely stronger than me." Little Lowly's smile froze, and then she fiercely looked at Morongyu. "Big baddie, can't you let me think that I killed that person myself?" Morongyu chuckled. "All right, you can go back now. I'm going to the Black Dragon Mountain Range." "Stop." Little Lowly stood in the air with her axe and looked down at Morongyu. "I said I'll protect you, so I'll go with you." "Little Lowly, you're interested in my time laws, right?" Morongyu looked at Little Lowly and transmitted his voice. Morongyu was very strong, and he was even stronger after obtaining the time laws. And this ability was most suitable for finding and robbing treasures. Little Lowly's face reddened, and she fiercely glared at Morongyu, and then flew into the air, flying out of Black Dragon City. As for Morongyu and Fan Jian, they followed suit. Fan Jian was very curious about Little Lowly's identity. However, he knew his place and placed it in its proper position. He had no intention of asking about it. "Big baddie, I heard that you caused a sensation in the true martial temple. Why are you still an odd job disciple?" Little Lowly suddenly asked on the way. Morongyu was speechless. "Who is this Little Lowly? I don't remember saying anything about the true martial temple, right? I didn't even wear the true martial temple's uniform." Little Lowly proudly raised her head. "This lady's intelligence is top-notch. As long as you're in the holy world, you won't be able to escape from my palm." Morongyu's interest was piqued. "Since your intelligence is so good, tell me what's going on in the holy tomb this time? Is it really a venerable's tomb?" "That's right. It's a venerable's tomb. Moreover, I heard that even a venerable was alerted this time. Venerable true martial and others might come in person." Hearing this, Fan Jian was excited. A venerable a peak existence in the holy world. Countless people dreamed of reaching this realm, but only a few people in history had been able to reach this realm. If he could see the grace of a venerable, this trip would be worth it. Fan Jian thought excitedly in his heart. Is there really a venerable saint godhead? Morongyu's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes glimmered. Thousands of thoughts flashed in his mind. Little Lowly couldn't help laughing. "Big baddie, you want to snatch that venerable saint godhead for Sister Mengqing and the others to refine?" Morongyu nodded his head. He had the same idea. If one of Zhao Jiqing and the others could become a venerable, then it would be much more convenient for them in the holy world. Forget it. This time, a venerable saint will definitely take action. The venerable saint godhead and the supreme artifact will be obtained by a few venerables. With your strength, you can compete for other treasures. Morongyu only grinned. Weren't treasures meant for the virtuous? No matter what, he had to do his best to snatch the treasures. As to whether he could succeed or not, that was another matter. If he fought for the treasures, there was still a chance, but if he didn't, there was no chance at all. The Black Dragon Mountain Range was a huge mountain range that stretched across the entire Black Dragon Holy Country. It was extremely vast and boundless. Just as he approached, Morongyu's divine sense spread out. However, other than the venerable saints in the mountain range, he couldn't see the other side of the mountain range. It was said that even a venerable Saint King's divine sense couldn't cover the entire mountain range. It was obvious how vast the Black Dragon Mountain Range was. "Morongyu, we've been waiting for you for a long time." When Morongyu's group of 3 approached the Black Dragon Mountain Range, a group of 5 people shot out from the Black Dragon Mountain Range towards Morongyu. Morongyu's face sank. "Who are you people?" "The people who want your life. Brat, let me tell you now, even if you're an alchemy and smithing genius, you're still just a part-time disciple. In our eyes, you're nothing. True martial temple's outer hall disciples." Morongyu and Fan Jian's expressions were ugly, especially Morongyu. He had never imagined that these people would be waiting for him here. Could it be that they had the ability to predict the future? Murong, I didn't betray you. Fan Jian also felt that something was wrong and immediately expressed his stance to Murong. Murong nodded slightly. He believed that Fan Jian didn't betray him. However, these people definitely had some special means. No matter how you found me, I'm not interested in knowing. What I do know is that the 5 of you will die today. Chapter 1369. Since the disciples of the outer hall wanted to kill him, Murong had to fight back. Moreover, based on his character, he would kill anyone that came at him. If 2 came at him, he would kill them both. He would kill until they were afraid. And these 5 profound sages in front of him were just the beginning. Ha! The 5 profound sages were stunned at first, but then they looked at each other and laughed. In their ears, Murong's words were like a very funny joke. Big scoundrel, don't do anything. I'll go kill these bad guys. I haven't killed a disciple of the true martial temple yet. I wonder how it feels. The little lowly said excitedly while holding the giant axe in one hand and pulling Murong's hand in the other. Murong was speechless. He hadn't seen this little lowly for many years, but she hadn't grown up at all. Even her character hadn't changed. The 5 disciples of the true martial temple seemed to have only just noticed the little lowly. But when they saw the little lowly with the giant axe, they had the same expression as Fan Jian. Die for me. When they looked at the little lowly, she had already shouted. The giant axe in her hand tore through the void and fiercely chopped down at one of the profound sages. This giant axe is pretty good. Little sister, I'll take care of it for you. The profound sage reacted very quickly, but although he reacted, he didn't take it seriously. As far as he knew, even if he stood there and let the little lowly chop at him, the little lowly wouldn't be able to kill him. After all, the gap between the profound sage realm and the undead realm was there. However, he was somewhat greedy for the little lowly's giant axe. Therefore, he directly reached out his large hand to grab the giant axe that was slashing down. A playful look flashed across Murong's face, while Fan Jian was somewhat gloating. He had seen the little lowly chop down a primal chaos ancestor sage with a single chop. The 5 disciples of the outer hall in front of him were far inferior to that primal chaos ancestor sage. With a puff, the big hand of the profound sage was directly cut off. The giant axe continued to chop down at him without any hindrance. The profound sage was startled, and with a thought, he was about to retreat. At this moment, Murong's face revealed a strange smile. With a flick of his finger, that profound sage felt as if he had hit a transparent but incomparably hard membrane. With a bang, the membrane behind the profound sage was directly smashed. However, because of the thin film, his body involuntarily paused for a moment. This stagnation was incredible. The little lowly's giant axe had already chopped down with a terrifying destructive aura. Blood suddenly splashed out as the profound sage's body was cut in half from head to toe by the axe. Even his soul had been split in half. He didn't even have the chance to escape from the soul space. What's the situation? Seeing this scene, Murong had a faint smile on his face, as if he'd known this would happen. Fan Jian was not surprised. After all, he had seen something even more shocking before. However, the remaining profound sages of the true martial temple were extremely shocked. Other than them, the passers-by were the same. An imperishable realm expert killed a profound sage with a single strike. Countless people looked at the little lowly with shocked gazes. Although the little lowly was somewhat guilty, she enjoyed the shock of the people around her and had a proud look on her face. It must be because of this giant axe. Kill her and take the giant axe. The 4 profound sages of the true martial temple looked at each other and immediately understood each other's intentions. Therefore, they attacked at the same time without any prior agreement. You guys are actually bullying a little girl as profound sages. Your faces are really thick. At the same time, Murong finally made his move. The little lowly was definitely not a match for 4 profound sages. Just now, if he hadn't secretly appeared and blocked that person's figure with a spatial barrier, the little lowly wouldn't have been able to kill him. Although the little lowly had all kinds of powerful means, Muronyu would not allow them to bully her. He took a step forward and waved his hand, causing the power of time to gush out. Puff, puff, puff. The power of the profound sages, and even the hands they stretched out, were all transferred to another space-time. Even their hands were sent to another space-time. Fortunately, Murongyu's ability to reverse space-time wasn't strong enough. If it had been reversed to ancient times or the extremely distant future, their hands would have been instantly shattered. However, it wasn't much better now. The power of their big hands was instantly drained, and they immediately withered. Heaven-destroying Starnet. After using the power of time to block their attacks, Murongyu's soul pool began to stir violently. Streams of terrifying soul power shot out and charged into their soul space, trying to strangle their souls. Before destroying their souls, Muronyu fiercely transmitted to the little lowly, "Little lowly, do it." The little lowly immediately became excited and slashed out with the giant axe in her hand, tearing the sky and splitting the earth, destroying everything. These 4 outer hall disciples of the true martial temple didn't know that Murongyu's soul had reached the 6th heavenly layer, and his soul had become a saint. Therefore, they were caught off guard. It wasn't until Murongyu's soul power arrived in front of their souls that they finally reacted. But it was already too late. In just an instant, their souls were crushed into powder by Murongyu's violent soul power. Even if they had reacted earlier, it wouldn't have helped. This was because they simply couldn't resist Murongyu's soul power, which had already rushed into their soul space. Just as their souls were being crushed by Murongyu, the little lowly's giant axe coincidentally landed on their bodies, splitting them into 2 halves. Therefore, in the eyes of outsiders, these 4 profound sages were killed by the little lowly, and it had nothing to do with Murongyu. Of course, this was an illusion created by Murongyu. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked the little lowly to act. It should be known that he was only at the 4th rank of the undead realm, while these 4 people were profound sages. Murongyu was able to kill enemies 2 realms above him. If this news spread out, it was likely that he wouldn't be far from death. Those super powerhouses would definitely want to capture him and use him for research, but the little lowly wasn't afraid of this at all. Therefore, he had to use the little lowly as a shield. However, the little lowly was also very smart. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to understand Murongyu's intentions in an instant. What formidable strength! Who is this little girl? Everyone's expression changed as they looked at the little lowly. As for Murongyu, he was automatically ignored by everyone. A big man actually wanted a little girl to protect him. Truly shameless. If it were me, I would have already found a piece of tofu and killed myself. At this time, a disdainful voice was heard. Murongyu narrowed his eyes slightly and looked towards the source of the voice. He happened to see a white-robed man waving a folding fan step out of the crowd. Behind him were several powerful people who seemed to be his servants. "Little girl, following such a good-for-nothing will only delay you. Why don't you follow me? I am an elite disciple of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect, Tianzong. I am one of the strongest candidates for the next sect master." Tianzong waved his folding fan and flashed a smile that he thought was very handsome as he spoke to the little lowly. Tianzong? Hearing Tianzong's name, some of the people in the surroundings who knew his background couldn't help but exclaim. It was recognized as one of the most powerful forces in the human race, along with several cultivation holy lands. And under these holy lands, there were also some super forces. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect was one of these super forces. It was said that he had already reached the ancient sage realm after cultivating for an era. Although he wasn't the divine son of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect yet, as long as his strength continued to increase, he would become a divine son sooner or later. And once he became a divine son, he would have the qualifications to compete for the position of Heavenly Light Divine Sect's sect master. Even if he failed in the competition, he would become one of the powerful figures of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect in the future. Such a person's achievements would be limitless. He was someone that countless women would want to throw themselves at, although they despised him for daring to make a move on the little lowly. But they were even more envious of the little lowly. The little lowly could grow up, but a person like Tianzong was hard to come by. Heavenly Light Divine Sect? What's that? The little lowly looked at Tianzong in confusion. Hearing this, a cold light flashed across Tianzong's eyes. However, it was rather obscure, but it was still discovered by Murongyu. Although the Heavenly Light Divine Sect isn't a holy land, but it's still one of the strongest forces in the holy world. Even if I'm just an ordinary disciple, I'm still better than this trash that's just a service disciple, right? Tianzong pointed at Murongyu with a face full of disdain and ridicule. Fan Jian's face was filled with anger. Even if they were service disciples, they had a much higher status than him, an elite disciple. After all, the true martial temple and the Heavenly Light Divine Sect weren't on the same level. Just as he was about to speak, Murongyu shook his head. So it's like that. The little lowly smiled. If you can defeat my husband while suppressing your cultivation, I'll follow you. Husband, the surrounding people suddenly looked at Murongyu with astonishment, and many of them even contained a strong murderous intent. Murongyu's face darkened. The little lowly was attracting hatred for him. He's your husband? Tianzong immediately gritted his teeth and looked at Murongyu as if he wanted to eat him alive. I want to duel with you. Boring. Murongyu glanced at him, then pulled the little lowly and turned to leave. Let go of her hand. Tianzong's figure flashed and blocked in front of him, roaring at Murongyu. Murderous intent surged from his body, and he almost couldn't help but attack. Murongyu glared at the little lowly. If the little lowly hadn't attracted hatred for him, he would have already entered the Black Dragon mountain range. And Tianzong was an ancient saint, so he was extremely powerful. It wasn't easy to get rid of this trouble. Murongyu wasn't afraid of him, but he didn't want to reveal his true strength. Chapter 1370. If you seal your realm and defeat my husband, I'll go with you. Little lowly looked at Tianzong with a smile, as if she wanted to see the world in chaos. Murongyu couldn't help but feel a headache. What was little lowly thinking? She was actually causing trouble for him. Immediately, he glared fiercely at the little lowly. Tianzong's strength isn't that great, but he has some good things on him. If you can kill him and get his treasures, you can even directly advance to the undead realm. At this moment, little lowly's voice rang in Murongyu's ears. Even if Tianzong had a supreme weapon, Murongyu couldn't make a move on him at this time. If he killed him, he wouldn't even have time to seize the sacred weapon before being killed by the experts of Tianming Divine Sect. What was the difference between that and suicide? This Tianzong is narrow-minded and vengeful. If you defeat him here, he will definitely plot against you. When the time comes, we'll be able to get rid of him in the dead of the night. As if she knew what Murongyu was thinking, the little lowly transmitted her voice to him again. Good idea. Murongyu was a little tempted. Thus, his originally gloomy face bloomed into a bright smile, as if he'd already seen Tianzong's good things being robbed by him. Boy, do you dare to accept my challenge? As he spoke, Tianzong quickly sealed his realm at the 4th level of the undead realm, and then looked at Murongyu with arrogance and disdain. Murongyu's heart was blooming with joy, but he pretended to be hesitant. If you don't agree, we'll break up. Little lowly snorted and looked at Murongyu with dissatisfaction. At this moment, Murongyu almost shouted, It's best if we break up. We're not a couple, and we're not husband and wife. But Murongyu was just thinking about it. Even if he said so, little lowly would stick to him and not let go. Okay, I agree. However, you should at least show some sincerity. My bet is her. Murongyu pointed at the little lowly and smiled at Tianzong. How shameless. Hearing Murongyu's words, the surrounding people felt that Murongyu was too shameless. Even the little lowly was somewhat unhappy as she glared at Murongyu, and Tianzong's face was livid with anger. What? After you defeat me, she will be yours. You should at least take out something of similar value. Forget it. She's a priceless treasure. You could just take out a few supreme weapons, and it'll be enough. A supreme weapon. The surrounding people couldn't help but gasp. How could a supreme weapon be taken out so casually? Even the primal chaos ancestral artifact couldn't be casually taken out, let alone a supreme artifact. Tianzong's face froze. He really didn't have a treasure of that level. However, he sneered, "We'll talk about it after you defeat me." As he spoke, he was about to attack. No treasures? Go back to where you came from. I don't have time to waste with you. Murongyu sneered. Tianzong glared at Murongyu with a pale face. After a long while, he seemed to have made up his mind. With a flip of his hand, he took out 2 treasures from his storage ring. Suddenly, a vast aura burst out, suppressing the surrounding people and making their bodies tremble. Even their souls trembled. Murongyu's pupils abruptly shrank. This is a peerless saint weapon, and this dragon-shaped key is the key to an important secret place. If you can defeat me, these 2 treasures are yours. Tianzong looked at Murongyu and sneered. A peerless saint weapon. Countless burning gazes gathered on the supreme quality saint artifact. All of them were filled with greed. Even the Saint King realm experts were slightly tempted by the offer. It's just a peerless saint weapon. It's not even a saint weapon. It's worthless. And what kind of important secret place is this dragon-shaped key? Don't try to trick me with an ordinary item. Murongyu smiled faintly. The dragon-shaped key was exactly the same as the one Murongyu had obtained before. Even the aura was the same. Murongyu knew that this dragon-shaped key must be the same as those he had obtained. He also knew that the dragon-shaped key must be the key to an important secret place, and it might be related to the Dragon Clan. However, he didn't admit it all. If he did, wouldn't he be coveted? Tianzong's face reddened. He had obtained this dragon-shaped key by accident. He just felt that this dragon-shaped key wasn't simple. It might be the key to an important secret place. However, he didn't know what secret place it was. You call yourself an elite disciple of Tianming's sect. Is that all you have? You call this a treasure? You really make me despise you. Murongyu looked at Tianzong with disdain. Tianzong was angry and ashamed at the same time. It's not that I don't have a treasure. I just can't let you know. Tianzong growled in his heart. He almost couldn't help but take out his treasure. However, he thought about it. That treasure was very important. Once it was exposed, he would definitely die, and Tianming's sect would probably be implicated. He couldn't afford to bear this crime. Most importantly, little Loli wasn't worth it for him to expose that treasure. In that case, let's bet our lives. If I lose, I'll give her to you. Murongyu pointed at little Loli and continued. If you're defeated, I want the 2 things in your hands and your life. Okay, let's begin right now. Murongyu hadn't even finished speaking when he agreed to it, and he was afraid that Murongyu would go back on his word. So he took a few steps back and waited. I haven't finished speaking. Murongyu looked angry. In fact, he was overjoyed. As long as he defeated Tianzong, he would get a peerless sacred weapon and a dragon-shaped key. The peerless sacred weapon was fine, but the dragon-shaped key. Murongyu had a feeling that if he could collect these dragon-shaped keys, he would definitely be surprised. You can't turn back. Make your move. I'll give you 3 moves. Tianzong was afraid that Murongyu would go back on his word, so he continued to speak to stop Murongyu, and he wanted to exchange 3 moves with Murongyu. Little Loli was speechless. Tianzong really thought that he would win. He even dared to bet his life with Murongyu. He was simply tired of living. I'll give you 3 moves. If you give me 3 moves, I'm afraid you won't have a chance to make your move, Murongyu said lightly. Cut the crap. Hurry up and make your move. Tianzong was extremely impatient. Okay. Murongyu stopped being pretentious. He took a step forward and disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared with a bang, Tianzong's whole body was blown away. It was so fast that the others, even Tianzong, didn't have time to react. You sneak attacked. Because Murongyu didn't kill him, Tianzong wasn't injured and soon landed and stood firm. However, as soon as he stood firm, he said something that made Murongyu speechless. The others also looked at Tianzong with disdain. This guy let Murongyu make his move, but when Murongyu made his move, he said that he sneak attacked? Did he want Muronyu to shout before he made his move? I'm making my move. You have to be careful and avoid me. You lost. Muronyu didn't bother to talk nonsense with him and just said these 3 words lightly. You sneak attacked, so this time doesn't count. I haven't failed yet. Tianzong roared and took a step forward, crashing straight into Muronyu. At the same time, he stretched out his big hand, toward the void, and smashed toward Muronyu's head. You don't admit your loss, and you said you'd let me make 3 moves, but you didn't keep your word. Is this the quality of the elite disciples of Tianming Divine Sect? Well, today I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your sect master, what it means to keep your word. Muronyu sneered and also took a step forward, crashing into Tianzong. Bang! Without any suspense, Tianzong was sent flying again. And because Muronyu was angry at his shamelessness, he used a little more strength when crashing into him. This time, Tianzong was in for a tragedy. His entire body was cracked open from the impact. Blood spurted out from his body like a fountain, dyeing the sky red. I said, "You're no match for me. Give me those 2 treasures and kill yourself." Muronyu looked at Tianzong and said lightly, "Impossible." Tianzong roared and rushed up from the ground. His face was ferocious, and he looked at Muronyu with blood all over his body, as if he was crazy. In the end, he even rushed up and pounced on Muronyu. Muronyu's face darkened. He sneered and rushed up again. The result was still the same. Tianzong was sent flying again. And this time, Muronyu didn't give him a chance. He stomped him deep into the ground. Soon after, Muronyu waved his hand and snatched Tianzong's storage ring from the air. I don't want her life, but you can pay for it with the things in your storage ring. Muronyu sneered, then jumped up and shot toward the Black Dragon Mountain Range. Little Loli and Fan Jian followed him and left quickly. And Tianzong was still lying on the ground as if he was dead. It wasn't that he didn't want to get up, nor was it that he was so ashamed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. His strength was just sealed by Muronyu. He was suppressed to rank 4 of the undead realm. He was no match for Muronyu at all. Muronyu could easily suppress him. And the reason why Muronyu didn't kill him was not that he was afraid of Daybreak Divine Sect's revenge, but that he wanted to get Tianzong's treasure. That treasure, he had to secretly obtain it. If it was exposed in the open, the experts spying in the dark would definitely take action. By then, Muronyu wouldn't get any treasure. After Muronyu left, an incomparably mournful scream filled with fury that could set the 9 heavens ablaze resounded from afar. Little bastard, I'll never let you off. No matter how vast the saint's world is, there will be no place for you to go. As he spoke, Tianzong had already soared into the sky and shot in the direction Muronyu had left. And his servants also followed. It seemed that these experts weren't his servants, because no matter if Tianzong was defeated or suppressed, they didn't intend to take action. Chapter 1371. What treasures does Tianzong have? On the way, Muronyu suddenly asked. He had already checked Tianzong's storage ring. Apart from finding the second peerless divine weapon, there was nothing special. Although there were some refining materials and medicinal herbs, and even some rare elixirs. These things were also treasures, but with little Loli's background, these things would not catch her eye. Little Loli rolled her eyes at Muronyu. Why would Tianzong put something that catches my eye in a storage ring? It must be in his body. You need to kill him and erase his soul before it can burst out. Furthermore, his soul had to be destroyed in an instant. Otherwise, that thing will explode. Muronyu was speechless. He had been wondering why, with the little Loli's personality and the fact that Tianzong had a treasure that caught her eye, she hadn't snatched it away from him. It turned out that it was because of this. You like me because I'm a soul saint, right? Muronyu looked at little Loli with disdain. He didn't even want to look down on little Loli anymore. Otherwise, why would I need you? Little Loli didn't deny it and directly admitted it. But what treasure does he have on him? How do you know? Muronyu had been wondering about this for a long time. It's a secret. Little Loli raised her proud little head and walked past Muronyu. At this time, they had already entered the Black Dragon Mountain Range. The people coming and going were all experts of all kinds. However, they didn't stop. Instead, they flew directly toward the center of the Black Dragon Mountain Range. In the center of the Black Dragon Mountain Range, there was a huge holy tomb that towered into the clouds on the ground. It was indomitable, like a prehistoric ferocious beast that was entrenched here to devour people. Before they got close, a gust of gloomy aura hit them in the face. Murong couldn't help but shiver. Even his soul couldn't help but tremble. It was as if he had suddenly entered an ice cave. In fact, the temperature of the surrounding air wasn't low, but there was a gloomy feeling. This feeling targeted the soul and mind. Even Murong soul felt a sense of danger. There's danger in this holy tomb. Murong stopped and looked at the towering holy tomb with a grave expression. The stronger one's soul, the stronger one's sense of danger would be. Furthermore, if one could cultivate one's soul to perfection, one would even have the ability to predict the future. This was the ability to foresee danger. Why did you stop? Because Murong suddenly stopped. The little lowly, who didn't notice, flew forward for a long distance before she reacted. This Saint Tomb is dangerous, Murong said in a low voice. Murong was somewhat hesitant about the precognition ability of the soul. After all, he had never experienced something like this before. This time, it might really be a narrow escape. Where is there no danger? How can there be an opportunity without danger? The little lowly looked at Murong with disdain. Are you afraid? Murong shook his head. How could he be afraid? From a mortal world to the current holy world, how many dangers had he experienced? It could be said that the reason why he was where he was today was directly related to his constant adventures. At this moment, Murong suddenly felt a familiar aura shooting over from afar. This is the aura of the Phoenix clan. Murong's expression changed slightly. The Phoenix clan was an extremely powerful clan among the holy races. The reason why Murong felt familiar was because the aura on Zhao Jiqing's body was the same as theirs. Sensing the aura of the Phoenix clan, Murong narrowed his eyes and turned to look. He couldn't forget that Zhao Jiqing was taken away by the Phoenix clan. Part of the reason why he was risking his life was because he wanted to become stronger as soon as possible and kill his way to the Phoenix clan to bring Zhao Jiqing back. He definitely wouldn't allow his woman and friends to be forcefully taken away and separated. There weren't many people from the Phoenix clan. There were only a dozen or so of them. However, their auras soared into the sky. The auras they emitted were like raging flames. They were domineering, but not gentle. In Murong's eyes, the power radiating from these people was extremely intense. It was even dazzling and glaring. There were a dozen or so men and women, and all of them were handsome men and beautiful women. Even those who were older still had good looks. However, among the dozen or so people, there was a white-robed woman who stood out. The women by her side could be said to be devastatingly beautiful, capable of causing the downfall of countries and cities. Their beauty could captivate even the birds and beasts. However, compared to the white-robed woman, the difference was like a phoenix compared to a pheasant. That white-robed woman was simply too beautiful. She only flew in the void. Although her expression was indifferent and her eyes were ice-cold, she couldn't hide her otherworldly temperament. As soon as she appeared, it was as if the entire world had become dull and dull. Everything paled in comparison to the white-robed woman. So beautiful. When they saw the woman, countless people exclaimed in admiration. Even the women were the same. The men weren't lecherous, and the women weren't jealous. That white-robed woman was like a fairy that couldn't be blasphemed. This big sister is so beautiful. I like her so much. Seeing the white-robed woman slowly fly over, the little lowly standing beside Murong, you couldn't help but exclaim. The little lowly pulled Murong's arm and asked, "Big baddie, don't you think that big sister in white is very beautiful?" However, the little lowly couldn't wait for Murong's reply. Thus, she raised her head and looked at Murong. The little lowly was instantly enraged. At this moment, Muronyu was looking at the white-robed woman with an excited expression. His eyes didn't move at all, as if he was captivated by her. Isn't the white-robed big sister very beautiful? The little Loli's figure rose and floated in the void. She was at the same level as Muronyu, as she asked Muronyu with a smile. Muronyu nodded. No one in the world is more beautiful than her. The little Loli became even angrier. Big sister Meng Qing, big sister Liu, and the others can't compare to this white-robed big sister? Muronyu continued to nod. Good, you big baddie, big pervert. You actually like the new and hate the old. Do you believe that I won't chop you in half with my axe? Help big sister Meng Qing get justice? Muronyu finally withdrew his Muronyu. He looked at the angry little Loli and asked with a puzzled expression, What's wrong? Why are you so angry? The little Loli angrily snorted. That big sister is so beautiful. Why don't you take her as your wife? Muronyu nodded and immediately reacted. He glared at the little Loli. What nonsense are you talking about? She is my wife. Yes, that white-robed woman who stood out like a crane among chickens was Zhao Jiqing, who had been taken away by the Phoenix tribe. It was also because of this reunion with Zhao Jiqing that Muronyu lost his composure and became so agitated. Otherwise, if it were any other woman, no matter how beautiful she was, he would not lose his composure. After all, he was not a lustful person. She's your wife? She's my wife. Hearing Murongyu's words, the surrounding people could not help but stare at him. No one believed him at all. Even Fan Jian and the little Loli did not believe him. Since when did you have a Phoenix holy maiden as your wife? Big baddie, you're clearly a pervert. You fall in love with every woman you see. The little Loli was so angry that her knuckles turned white from gripping the handle of her axe too hard. She was trying her best not to chop Muronyu with her axe. She's your big sister Jiqing. Muronyu glared at the little Loli, then took a step forward and quickly walked towards Zhao Jiqing. She's big sister Jiqing? She's so beautiful. How could a wretched guy like Big Baddie marry such a beautiful wife? Big sister Meng Qing and the others are like that, and so is big sister Jiqing. The little Loli was a little unhappy, but she still followed. Stop right there. Before Muronyu could get close to Zhao Jiqing, a young man came up and blocked Muronyu's path. Murderous intent radiated from him. Get out of the way, I'm going to Jiqing. At this moment, Muronyu only wanted to talk to Zhao Jiqing about their parting. Seeing someone blocking his way, how could he be happy? How dare you call the holy maiden by her name? You deserve to die. The young man's face suddenly changed. With a roar, his big hand reached out and grabbed Muronyu's head. His attack was swift and fierce, and he wanted to kill Muronyu directly. Stop! A clear and cold voice rang out. It was the expressionless Zhao Jiqing who spoke. This person offended the holy maiden, which is a crime punishable by death. Allow me to kill him. The young man who attacked did not listen to Zhao Jiqing at all. His big hand was already aiming for Muronyu. How dare you? Am I the holy maiden now, or are you the holy maiden? Stop immediately, or I'll sentence you to death. Zhao Jiqing was also angry. The young man's face changed slightly, and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. But in the end, he stopped. Holy maiden, these humans have offended the noble you, so they should be killed without mercy. Otherwise, everyone would dare to offend the holy maiden of the Phoenix clan. Remember, you don't just represent yourself, you represent the entire Phoenix clan. The Phoenix clan will not allow anyone to offend you. Kill him. A middle-aged, beautiful woman came to Zhao Jiqing's side and said coldly. Hearing her words, the young man who attacked earlier attacked again, aiming for Muronyu. And his speed was faster and more ruthless than before. He's my husband. I'd like to see who dares to touch him. Zhao Jiqing's aura surged. She was obviously angry. For beautiful middle-aged women surrounded Zhao Jiqing from four sides, as if they were putting her under house arrest. The holy maiden of the Phoenix clan is as pure as ice and as pure as jade. How can you have a husband? Kill this wild man for me. Holy maiden, don't forget your mission this time. Zhao Jiqing's face flushed red. Obviously, she was burning with anger. However, Murong Yu had already retreated and dodged the attack of a young man from the Phoenix clan. However, the young man was like a shadow attached to the body. He chased closely and attacked again. Chapter 1372. Murong Yu retreated again and again, but the attacks of a young man from the Phoenix clan were really fierce. Moreover, he was a super powerhouse of the Sage King realm. With Murong Yu's strength, even if he attacked with all his strength, he was not his opponent. Therefore, in just a few breaths of time, Murong Yu was in danger. There were several times when he narrowly avoided the young man's attacks and was almost killed. If Murong Yu fought with the other party with all his strength, it was not impossible for him to escape quickly. Using the power of time and space, the other party could not do anything to him. However, how could he escape from here now? Although Zhao Jiqing had only said a few words, Murong Yu knew that she was not doing well in the Phoenix clan. Her strength had soared to the profound sage realm, directly surpassing Murong Yu by 2 realms. Moreover, Zhao Jiqing was the holy maiden of the Phoenix clan. However, the Phoenix clan had too many restrictions on her. Even on this trip, she had brought several experts of the Phoenix clan with her to protect her. Although they were protecting her in name, they were actually putting her under house arrest. Zhao Jiqing did not even have the most basic freedom. Moreover, those people did not listen to her. As such, so what if Zhao Jiqing's strength had risen to the primal chaos ancestor realm? Without any freedom to speak of, what was the point? The more it was like this, the more Murong Yu's heart ached. The more he wanted to increase his strength and bring Zhao Jiqing out of the Phoenix clan, the stronger he became. Murong, you leave first. Don't worry about me. Zhao Jiqing had no choice but to send a sound transmission to Murong Yu to leave. Although Murong Yu was powerful, the people around her were all powerhouses of the Phoenix clan. If they really wanted to kill Murong Yu would not be able to resist at all. She did not want to see Murong Yu injured. Murong Yu did not want to leave at all. This was too cowardly. However, if this continued, he would not have an easy time. He would even be killed by the people of the Phoenix clan, and he would not be able to take Zhao Jiqing away. However, he was unwilling to leave just like this. He did not even say a word. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he had an increasingly bad impression of the Phoenix clan. I will be fine. I am now the holy maiden of the Phoenix clan, but I can use the resources of the Phoenix clan to cultivate. As long as I'm stronger, the Phoenix clan will not be able to do anything. There is no benefit of Murong Yu's, there's no benefit. I do not see anything happen to you. She says ants, and again. There is only one meaning to his words. He wanted Murong Yu to leave as soon as possible. Murong, S's ants and he's, S and he's and again, and ants and the youngs. His Murong S, and Murong Yu's blood. S merce long, S's. However, as he retreated, he shot a vicious glare at Murong Yu with incomparably resentful eyes. At the same time, the middle-aged man from the Phoenix clan stepped forward. Boom! As soon as he stepped on the ground, a violent aura appeared out of thin air. It turned into a torrent that tore through the void and bombarded Murong Yu's body. Puffed. Murong Yu had already raised his strength to the limit when he saw the middle-aged man make a move. But even so, he still felt as though an incomparably huge sacred mountain had slammed into his body. His bones instantly shattered, and his body was almost smashed into a pile of mud. A strong force surged into his body, and Murong Yu's body flew far away like a kite with a broken string. During this process, Murong Yu spat out a large mouthful of blood. With just one step, Murong Yu was seriously injured. Zhao Jiqing was anxious when she saw this. She was about to rush out. However, the 4 middle-aged women beside her snorted coldly. A strong force surged out, directly suppressing her in place, making her unable to move. Although Zhao Jiqing was in the profound sage realm, the 4 middle-aged women were much stronger than her. She couldn't resist at all, and could only watch as Murong Yu was injured. Seeing that Murong Yu was only seriously injured, and that his body hadn't even burst apart. Murong Yu's expression changed. The middle-aged man from the Phoenix clan, Feng Hao, had a strange look on his face. He was in the ancestor sage realm. As long as he released his aura, not to mention the undead realm, even undead realm, profound sage realm, or even ancient sage realm powerhouses wouldn't be able to bear it and would be easily turned into a bloody mist. However, Murong Yu hadn't even brought out any magical weapon or holy tool. While shocked, Feng Hao also felt a little embarrassed. He, a dignified ancestor sage, couldn't even kill someone in the undead realm. Feng Hao could even feel the contemptuous gazes of the people around him. With a cold snort, he took another step forward. Asterisk bang. Asterisk Murong Yu couldn't bear it and was sent flying once again. However, this time, he had already brought out Hichu Luoshu to protect his body. Although he was sent flying, he wasn't seriously injured like before. His life force circulated, and the seriously injured Murong Yu returned to his peak state. After being unable to kill Murong Yu twice in a row, Feng Hao was extremely angry in his heart. When he took the third step, his big hand stretched out, and a claw tore through the void, grabbing towards Murong Yu. At this moment, an aura of death enveloped Murong Yu's heart. Even Murong Yu's soul trembled violently. This was a natural reaction of the soul after sensing an intense danger. Murong Yu was greatly shocked and immediately retreated. He didn't resist. Such a strong reaction from his soul showed that Murong Yu couldn't resist at all, even if he brought out Hichu Luoshu and other treasures. Space travel, time reversal, Hichu Luoshu, Yin-Yang Cauldron. All kinds of methods were used, and he didn't hold anything back. Swish! In just an instant, billions of claw shadows enveloped Murong Yu's entire body. A terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth splashed out, rushing towards Murong Yu's heart. The aura of death became even more intense. Even Murong Yu's body that had been repaired began to shatter inch by inch, his bones shattered, and his meridians ruptured. At this moment, Murong Yu felt as if he had fallen into a swamp. He, who had entered the void and was preparing to travel, felt that the surrounding void had become soft, as if he had bumped into cotton. Void lock. Murong Yu was directly ejected from the void, and when he was ejected, the void around Murong Yu had already solidified, as hard as metal. Time reversal. Unable to travel through the void, Murong Yu could only envelop himself with the power of time, reversing his time. At the same time, the fiend intent appeared behind Murong Yu, spreading its wings and flying. Except, although Murong Yu's speed was fast, Feng Hao's speed was even faster. In just an instant, his claws already clawed down. Except because Murong Yu was already in a different time and space from him, his grab already grabbed into the void. It did not harm Murong Yu at all. Although Feng Hao had never seen these things before, his abundant combat experience made him immediately erupt with a powerful strength. Rumble like raging waves, power erupted from his large hand. Immediately, the surrounding void was shattered inch by inch. Under the bombardment of this terrifying power, Murong Yu's power of time was immediately annihilated rapidly. Murong Yu also quickly walked towards the present time and space. And only at this time did the fiend wings appear. The gap between the Undying Realm and the Ancestor Sage Realm was too great. Murong Yu was not a match at all. Even if he used all kinds of methods, he was not a match for the Ancestor Sage at all. So much so that Murong Yu did not even have the chance to enter Hichu, Luoshu, or teleport back to the God Realm, because the void had already been sealed and imprisoned. Could it be that when we killed just like this? Murong Yu was extremely unresigned in his heart. And although Zhao Jiqing was anxious, she could only be anxious, nothing more. Her strength had been sealed, and it was impossible for her to even walk. And those people around Zhao Jiqing looked at Murong Yu and sneered endlessly. They were very clear about Zhao Jiqing's identity and background. In their hearts, the Phoenix clan's holy maiden should be as pure as ice and as pure as jade. She actually had a husband. This was unacceptable to them. So much so that when Zhao Jiqing was brought back, many people in the Phoenix Clan were dissatisfied that those two Phoenix Clan powerhouses did not kill Mu Rongyu on the spot. There was once when they wanted to hunt down Mu Rongyu in the Holy World. But in the end, for some unknown reason, they did not hunt down Mu Rongyu. It was just that they were extremely dissatisfied with Mu Rongyu's existence. Countless people in the Phoenix Clan had thought of killing Mu Rongyu when he came to their door or when they encountered Mu Rongyu outside. Therefore, when they found out that Mu Rongyu was Zhao Jiqing's husband, they immediately killed him. Even if the Holy Maiden of the Phoenix Clan had a husband, he was still a member of the Phoenix Clan and not a lowly human. Moreover, Mu Rongyu was only an undying realm cultivator and was not worthy of Zhao Jiqing at all. Hee, the Phoenix Clan is so awe-inspiring. Killing a human in the human territory. A cold voice rang out. With a swish, a huge axe fell from the sky and immediately chopped towards Feng Hao, who was about to kill Mu Rongyu. Feng Hao sneered, and his hand that was grabbing towards Mu Rongyu did not stop, but his other hand reached out towards the huge axe. Feng Hao, back off. At this moment, in the Phoenix Clan, a man who had been resting with his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes and shouted in a low voice. Feng Hao was shocked and immediately retreated without thinking. It seemed like that person's identity was not simple. The moment Feng Hao retreated, Mu Rongyu also happened to return from the other space. If Feng Hao had retreated a moment later, Mu Rongyu would definitely have been killed. It was the same even if the little lowly attacked. But why did the Phoenix Clan not dare to attack? The people in the surroundings, including Mu Rongyu, were all puzzled. However, Mu Rongyu vaguely knew that the other party did not continue to attack, not because of him, but because of the little lowly. Let's go. The man who shouted at Feng Hao took a deep look at the little lowly, then turned around and shot towards the direction of the holy tomb. The other members of the Phoenix Clan also did not hesitate and immediately shot out. Although Zhao Jiqing was unwilling to leave, she was also taken away. Because her power was sealed, she did not even have the ability to transmit sound. It was indeed because of the little lowly. Who was the little lowly? Even the Phoenix Clan did not dare to attack her. Chapter 1373. The Phoenix Clan was very powerful. They were a sacred beast clan that had been passed down since ancient times. Even among the sacred clans, they were one of the most powerful clans. Their position in the sacred world was unshakable. Although the Phoenix Clan did not have any supremes now, the Phoenix Clan was very powerful. However, the Phoenix Clan's foundation was extremely powerful. Ordinary clans would not dare to provoke such a colossus. In fact, if the Phoenix Clan did not provoke other clans, those clans would be grateful. But now, they were scared away by Little Lowly? Who was Little Lowly? What was her background? Could she be a Supremes? This thought suddenly appeared in Mu Rongyu's mind. There were only two Supremes in the human clan. One was naturally the founder of the true martial temple, the true martial sacred hall. The other Supremes was Supremes unparalleled. The unparalleled palace was on par with the true martial temple. It was one of the two most powerful cultivation sacred grounds of the human clan. Could Little Lowly be the relative or disciple of one of the two Supremes? Mu Rongyu thought. He was more inclined to think that Little Lowly was the relative of one of the two Supremes. After all, the Phoenix Clan was not afraid of the Supreme's disciples. Thinking of this, Mu Rongyu could not help but look at Little Lowly. Little Lowly, who are you? The Phoenix Clan was scared away by you? Little Lowly immediately looked at Mu Rongyu. Her big watery eyes were filled with innocence. Who said I scare them away? Do I have such great ability? Seeing Little Lowly pretending to be stupid, Mu Rongyu shook his head helplessly. Since Little Lowly did not want to say, he would not ask anymore. The truth would surface sooner or later. Seeing Zhao Jiqing and the others enter the Saint Tomb, Mu Rongyu retracted his gaze. However, his mood was very bad. In the end, he was too weak. Let's enter the Saint Tomb too, Mu Rongyu said with a murderous aura. He knew that the Saint Tomb was actually another space. It was filled with danger. Moreover, it was a random teleportation. If he found a lone Phoenix clan expert, a cold killing intent flashed through Murongyu's eyes. He would never show mercy to those who wanted to kill him. If he could kill a few Phoenix powerhouses in the Saint Tomb, he would treat it as interest. Shouldn't we wait for Tianzong outside the Saint Tomb? The treasure on him can help you break through to the imperishable stage. The little lowly was a little hesitant. If Tianzong really wants to kill me, he will enter the Saint Tomb. We'll just wait for him in the tomb. As they spoke, they arrived at the entrance of the tomb. One figure after another shot over from afar before disappearing at the entrance of the Saint Tomb. However, no one came out at all. Wealth comes from danger. Clenching his teeth, Murongyu's figure blurred as he charged into the Sage Tomb's entrance. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Murongyu had already landed on the ground. Then, another figure appeared beside him. It was the little lowly. However, when the little lowly appeared, she glared at Murongyu angrily. Big baddie, did you do it on purpose? You clearly know that the Saint Tomb is randomly teleported, but you still stepped in first. Do you want to get rid of me? The little lowly looked at her cheeks and was furious. Murongyu slapped his forehead. He actually forgot about this matter. And Fan Jian did not teleport in. He was probably teleported to another place. Humph. As long as you are in the holy world, you can't escape from me. Big baddie, you'd better give up. Before Murongyu could speak, the little lowly snorted coldly again. Murongyu was quite curious about what the little lowly could do. However, he was too lazy to ask. The little lowly definitely wouldn't say anything. Thus, he began to look around. The Saint Tomb had a total of 9 floors. Each floor was vast and boundless, exactly the same as the holy world. If Murongyu didn't know that he had entered the Saint Tomb, he wouldn't have felt any difference at all. However, it was said that with every floor, the heaven and earth origin energy there would be twice as dense. If one went to the highest floor, the heaven and earth origin energy there would be dozens of times more than the outside world. Even if one didn't obtain any treasures, cultivating there would be a good idea. Moreover, according to legend, the real tomb of the primordial supreme was on the 9th floor. Now, many experts had already rushed to the 9th floor. However, every floor of the Saint Tomb was full of danger. The first floor was still okay. There weren't any powerful, fierce beasts. However, with every floor, those fierce beasts would be stronger. Legend had it that the 9th floor even had supreme-level fierce beasts. And the first floor only had some fierce beasts that had reached the Great Sage Realm. Undead Realm fierce beasts were only a small portion. Let's go to the entrance of the 2nd floor. Murongyu waited for a while and still didn't see Fan Jian, so he decided to move. Because the heaven and earth origin energy on the 1st floor was the same as the holy world. Moreover, the Saint Tomb had already been open for a period of time. Even if there were treasures here, they would have long been plundered clean. The little lowly nodded. Immediately, the two of them soared into the sky and flew toward the depths of the tomb. During this process, Murongyu also released his incomparably powerful divine sense. He wanted to find Fan Jian, but he didn't find anything. After flying for a while, the little lowly suddenly asked, "Do you know where the entrance to the 2nd floor is?" Murongyu shook his head. He hadn't even been here, so how would he know? I'm going to faint. I thought you knew where the entrance was. Turns out you don't. Since you don't know, why did you bring me along? I thought you knew. The little lowly rattled off a bunch of things, and Murongyu's face darkened. You know? Murongyu asked in return. The little lowly nodded. This time, it was Murongyu's turn to be speechless. Since you know, why didn't you lead the way? Thus, the two of them stared at each other. In the end, it was Murongyu who lost and let the little lowly lead the way. Boom! At this moment, a ray of holy light soared into the sky not far from where Murongyu and the little lowly were. It reached the 9 heavens. The soaring holy light was accompanied by a torrential aura. A divine weapon has appeared. Murongyu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately took a step forward and directly broke through the void. He shuttled toward the direction where the holy light appeared. This guy is hopeless. The little lowly rolled her eyes. She also escaped into the void and chased after Muronyu. At this moment, Muronyu had already arrived at the soaring holy light. The first thing he saw was a halberd shining with holy light struggling out of the ground. A top-grade divine weapon. Murongyu's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly stretched out his big hand and grabbed the halberd. Chi! However, just as he stretched out his hand, an incomparably huge blade light shattered the void in front of him and quickly slashed toward Muronyu. The power was ferocious and the killing intent was fierce. It actually wanted to kill Muronyu with one slash. The moment the blade light appeared, a figure also stepped out of the void in front of him. Muronyu was furious. Although everyone was fighting for the divine weapon, it was only because they were fast. There was no need to kill the other party first and then snatch the divine weapon. Moreover, Muronyu's figure today was not very good. Thus, he snorted coldly and quickly punched out. He directly bombarded the blade light that was slashing toward him. With a loud bang, the blade light was directly shattered into millions of pieces by Muronyu. On the other hand, Muronyu took a step forward, shattering the void and appearing near the halberd in a single step. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the halberd in his hand. Then, with a thought, the halberd disappeared from his hand and was kept in Hichu Luoshu. "Give me back my divine weapon," the expert who had slashed Muronyu earlier roared. He held the blade with both hands and aimed it at Muronyu's head. "Die!" Muronyu roared and punched out again. With a bang, the long blade in the opponent's hand was directly shattered. In fact, both of his hands were directly shattered. At the same time, he spat out blood and flew backward. Muronyu's fingers were like swords and slashed out. A sword chi soared into the sky, tearing the sky and splitting the earth. It directly cut the opponent in two. "How dare you slash me? Do you know who I am? I am a young master of the Green Thunder sect. How dare you slash me? You're dead." Although the holy world is big, there is no place for you. The Green Thunder sect will kill you and your family. The young master of the Green Thunder sect roared. However, he seemed to be a coward. "Green Thunder sect? I've never heard of it." Muronyu sneered and slashed out again. He was about to kill the opponent's soul. But at this moment, a figure rushed out of the young master's soul, perhaps sensing that he was in danger. Finally, a tall and strong man appeared above the young master of the Green Thunder sect. "Who dares to kill my son?" After the strong man came out, he roared and directly targeted Muronyu with a punch. "Father, kill him for me." The young master of the Green Thunder sect roared happily when he saw the figure. A dangerous aura enveloped Muronyu's heart. The figure was extremely powerful, at least in the ancient saint realm. If it was his original body, it should be in the holy king realm. Muronyu is not afraid of the disciples of the other holy lands, let alone a sect of this level. "The power of time," Muronyu sneered. The power of time immediately spread out, enveloping the figure and sending him into a different space. Although the opponent would soon break out of the power of time, even if it was only for a moment, it was enough. With Muronyu's current strength, he could not kill him for the time being, but it was more than enough to kill the young master of the Green Thunder sect. Soul-devouring slash. The power of the soul was like a blade, destroying everything. Before the young master of the Green Thunder sect could react, his soul had been cut into pieces by Muronyu. In fact, Muronyu even took a deep breath and directly devoured the soul fragment. "How dare you kill my son? The Green Thunder sect will hunt you down." Seeing this scene, the strong man who had just returned from the different space roared. However, because of the loss of the young master of the Green Thunder sect, his power quickly dissipated and he disappeared into the void before he finished his words. At the same time, in the Black Dragon Holy Kingdom, Qinglei, the sect master of the Green Thunder sect who had been in seclusion, suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 1374. Who killed my son and destroyed his soul? Who is it? Qinglei suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were spitting out two streams of anger. He roared in the secret chamber. With a thought, Muronyu's face appeared in front of him. This was because the trace of divine thought he had attached to his son's soul captured Murong Yu's appearance. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how his son died. Soul sanctification. My son's death is irreconcilable. If I take you back and force you to give me the soul sanctification cultivation method, I can make a breakthrough to the ancestor saint stage that I've been stuck with for so long, Qing Lei thought to himself with a ferocious look on his face. Are you feeling better? After Murong Yu killed the young master of the Green Thunder sect, little Loli flew over and asked with concern. The little Loli knew that Murong Yu was feeling depressed. Otherwise, with her personality, she would have already killed the Green Thunder Divine cult's young sect master, who was only in the imperishable realm. Murong Yu shook his head. The gloominess and killing intent in his heart wasn't something that could be vented by just killing someone. But while shaking his head, he smiled coldly and said, "It seems that more people have come to die." He killed the young master. "Let's go and kill this adulterous couple." A roar came from afar, and before the voice died away, several figures shot over from afar. Before they arrived, various forces and divine weapons had already smashed the void and rushed toward Murong Yu. Murong Yu smiled coldly and stepped out. He smashed the void and appeared among the group of people. He grabbed at the void, and the sky halberd that he had snatched before appeared in his hand. Then he struck out with force. Puff, puff, puff. These people, the Green Thunder sect, were too weak. The strongest was only at rank 9 of the undead realm. With Murong Yu's strength at the peak of rank 8 of the undead realm, these people were no match for him. As a result, layers upon layers of halberd shadows enveloped the entire area. Clouds of blood mist continuously soared into the sky. Incomparably shrill screams spread far and wide, shaking the heavens and the earth. It was extremely terrifying. In less than a dozen breaths, the dozens of followers of the Green Thunder sect were all killed. None of them was left alive. Meanwhile, Murong Yu, who had gone on a killing spree, was also covered in blood. His expression was somewhat ferocious and somewhat terrifying. Let's go to the second floor. After calming down, Murong Yu and the little Loli went on their way. "Little bastard, where do you think you're going?" Half a day later, a roar came from behind Murong Yu. Then, a young man with a ferocious face appeared in Murong Yu's line of sight. Seeing that person, the little Loli's face suddenly lit up. "Big bad guy, I was right. Tianzong is here. Hurry up and kill him." Remember, at the moment of his death, you have to deprive him of the divine weapon from his soul. At this time, Murong Yu had calmed down. After seeing Tianzong, he even squeezed out a smile on his face. He was also very curious about the heaven-blessed treasure that little Loli had mentioned. "Tianzong, do you have any treasure for me again?" Murong Yu looked at Tianzong with a smile. Tianzong's face instantly turned livid. The blood in his body suddenly became turbulent, and he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. "Little bastard, I'll kill you today. Then everything you have will be mine, and this little Loli's." When looking at the little Loli, Tianzong's face became more and more ferocious, but his eyes flashed with a strong, obscene light. The little Loli frowned. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't kill Tianzong, she would have rushed out with a giant axe and hacked him to death. "Go to hell." Tianzong didn't give Murong Yu a chance to speak at all. With a roar, he pounced on him. The powerful and terrifying aura of the ancient sage level burst out, shaking the void around him and shattering large pieces. It was extremely terrifying. In an instant, Murong Yu's heart was enveloped by a strong sense of danger. After all, Tianzong was an expert of the ancient sage realm, 3 realms higher than Murong Yu. It was extremely difficult for Murong Yu to kill him. Just like the figure that Qing Lei had transformed into before, Murong Yu couldn't kill him at all. However, there was still a difference between Tianzong and Qing Lei's shadow. Qing Lei's shadow was just an illusion of a divine thought, without a soul. Even Murong Yu's soul attack didn't have any effect. But Tianzong had a soul. Murong Yu was more than capable of destroying his soul with his spiritual energy. Of course, the power of an expert of the ancient sage realm could already block Murong Yu's soul attack. Whoosh! Murong Yu immediately retreated. During this process, The Hichu Luoshu and the Yin Cauldron were also brought out. Big baddie, you'd better put him into the Hichu Luoshu. Otherwise, you won't be able to kill him with your current strength. On the contrary, you have a higher chance of dying. At this moment, little Loli suddenly transmitted a message. Moronyu rolled his eyes, but he took little Loli's words to heart. After all, Tianzong was an expert of the ancient sage realm, and he also had an unknown powerful sacred weapon. What kind of treasure does Tianzong have? Now that things have come to this point, shouldn't you reveal a little? Moronyu transmitted his voice to the little Loli. I don't know, I just overheard. The treasure on him is the cornerstone treasure of the Tianming divine sect. You have to be careful. Little Loli's words made Moronyu speechless. But while he was speechless, he was also somewhat expectant. The cornerstone treasure of the Tianming divine sect was definitely not an ordinary item. With a whoosh, Moronyu retreated. Although he had said a lot to little Loli, it was all through voice transmission. In fact, not even an instant had passed. I still underestimated you, but this time, you're definitely going to die. Seeing that Moronyu had dodged his attack and was only a little embarrassed, Tianzong couldn't help but be a little surprised. However, he didn't think that Moronyu was his opponent. After all, there was a gap of 3 major realms between them. Boom, boom, boom. Sure enough, Tianzong's strength was even more terrifying this time. His strength was already comparable to that of a holy king. Even Moronyu was forced into a fluster as he repeatedly shuttled through space. Moreover, after Tianzong discovered that Moronyu was traveling through the void, he directly imprisoned this area of the void. Now, Moronyu couldn't even travel through the void. However, Tianzong couldn't kill Moronyu in one move. Reversing time and space. Moronyu was forced to retreat again and again. He couldn't even breathe properly. However, Tianzong's attack was getting stronger and stronger. In the end, he used the power of time and temporarily sent Tianzong into an alternate time and space. However, Morongyu's strength wasn't strong enough. In just a moment, Tianzong had already shattered the power of time and returned to the current time and space from the alternate time and space. The law of space and the law of time. Who the hell are you? Tianzong was immediately stunned. At the same time, his eyes flashed with an extremely strong sense of greed. If he could control the law of space and the law of time, he could definitely step into the Holy King realm in a short time. The Ancestor Saint realm and the Chaos Ancestor Saint realm wouldn't be a problem. Even the Supreme realm wouldn't be impossible. At the thought of this, Tianzong immediately became excited. Therefore, his attacks became more and more fierce. After a while, Moronyu's power of time was almost used up. The amount of power of time converted was still too little and not strong enough. Otherwise, Moronyu could directly send Tianzong into the alternate time and space and make him unable to return. Bang! Moronyu's physical body was shattered again and exploded into a cloud of blood mist. After Tianzong's all-out attack, Moronyu couldn't dodge his attack even if he used the demon wings. However, Moronyu's recovery ability was terrifying. After his physical body exploded, he immediately recovered to the peak. He only lost some of his life force. Soul devouring slash. After Moronyu condensed his physical body again, the power of soul that he had been preparing for a long time finally slashed out. The power of soul was like a knife, directly rushing into Tianzong's soul space and fiercely slashing on Tianzong's soul. Because he was caught off guard, Tianzong didn't have time to react at all. By the time he reacted, it was already too late to reverse the situation. Moronyu sneered in his heart. As long as Tianzong's soul was slashed on his body, he would definitely die. And Tianzong also thought so he was a little desperate in his heart. But a sudden change occurred. Boom! Just as Moronyu's soul slashed on Tianzong's soul suddenly burst into a dazzling 5-colored light. The 5-colored light instantly filled Tianzong's entire soul space and quickly spread out of the 5-colored space, illuminating his whole body with 5 colors. Finally, the five-colored light penetrated the surface of Tianzong's body and soared into the sky. At this moment, an extremely strong aura of death and an irresistible sense of powerlessness rose in Murong Yu's heart. Even Murong Yu's soul trembled violently. A feeling called fear spread throughout Murong Yu's soul. Death. Powerlessness. At this moment, Murong Yu actually felt that he couldn't resist and was about to be killed, because the aura was too terrifying, far surpassing that of the Ancestor Saint and the Chaos Ancestor Saint. A supreme weapon. At this moment, in the Hichu Luoshu world, Hichu exclaimed. And because of Hichu's exclamation, Murong Yu was also awakened. Almost at the same time as Hichu's exclamation, in the extreme north of the human territory of the Holy World, a handsome young man suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes seemed to see through the void as he looked at Murong Yu's location from afar and muttered to himself, "Has the supreme weapon appeared?" In the depths of the unparalleled palace, a figure shrouded in five-colored light, whose gender couldn't be seen clearly, also woke up from seclusion and looked at Murong Yu's location. A supreme weapon from the Archean era? At the same time, some supreme existences from the demon race and the sacred race also looked over from afar. Chapter 1375. The Supreme Saint Godhead, Supreme Artifact. Refining the Supreme Saint Godhead would allow one to become a new supreme being. And if he had a supreme weapon, it would be equivalent to having another supreme being. Therefore, whether it was the Supreme Saint Godhead or Supreme Artifact, both were sought after by countless people in the Holy World, especially the Supreme Saint Godhead. If one could refine the Supreme Saint Godhead, wouldn't they become a new supreme being? When the time came for a supreme being to descend upon the world, how awe-inspiring would that be? Other than that, there was the Supreme Artifact. The Supreme Artifact was powerful, but even the primal Chaos Ancestor Sage couldn't unleash its full power. Only super experts who had reached the Venerable Realm could unleash the Supreme Artifact's full power. However, Supreme Artifacts were Super Saint Artifacts nurtured by Supreme Beings, and they would more or less contain some of the Supreme Being's insights. If one had a Supreme Artifact, even if they couldn't unleash its full power, they could still feel the insights contained within. It was equivalent to having a Supreme Being guiding them in their cultivation. Wouldn't that mean their cultivation realm and strength would rise by leaps and bounds? The five-colored holy light grew increasingly intense, and in the blink of an eye, it filled the entire first floor of the holy tomb. However, the five-colored holy light did not stop there. It permeated everything, rushing into the second and third levels of the tomb and rapidly spreading out into the outside world of the saints. In just a few breaths' time, the entire ninth floor was filled with five-colored holy light. Heaven and earth were filled with five-colored holy light. Other than the holy tomb, the entire Black Dragon Mountain range was also shrouded in a layer of mysterious and dazzling five-colored holy light. Outside the Black Dragon Mountain range, the five-colored holy light continued to spread into the distance, submerging the entire Black Dragon Holy Empire. As the five-colored holy light spread, the Supreme Artifact's terrifying and powerful aura also spread out. Wherever the Supreme Artifact's aura passed, ripples appeared in the void, and the souls of living beings trembled. A feeling of powerlessness rose in their hearts. At this moment, other than feeling powerless, the only thought in everyone's mind was to prostrate and worship. Whether it was true saints or primal chaos ancestor sages, in front of the Supreme Artifact's violent and powerful aura, they felt like mere ants. Other than submitting, they had no other thoughts. No. Although this Supreme Artifact is powerful and has a trace of a Supreme Artifact's aura, it's still a far cry from the Supreme Artifact. There's still a huge gap between it and a true Supreme Artifact. This is just an incomplete Supreme weapon. As Murong Yu's soul trembled, his body involuntarily bowed in submission. Hichu suddenly said. Morong couldn't help being shocked. Now, Hizel was not willing to submit. He was not even willing to have the thought of submitting. However, that supreme weapon was simply too powerful. It suppressed his body, mind, and even soul. His body, mind, and soul were all subdued. If it wasn't for Murong Yu's strong willpower, he would have already prostrated himself on the ground. Just like Tianzong, the moment the supreme weapon appeared, he had already been suppressed to the point of prostrating himself on the ground. Only little Loli seemed to be fine. She stood there and looked at Tianzong with sparkling eyes. It was as if he was going to snatch the supreme weapon. Even a damaged supreme artifact had such terrifying power. What if it was a complete supreme artifact? Murong Yu knew that the supreme weapon's power he felt now was just the power it unintentionally emitted. If it was activated, would it raise the entire Holy Tomb and the Black Dragon Mountain range to the ground? An incomplete supreme weapon. The super experts who looked over from a distance frowned at the same time. It was as if they could see the supreme weapon in Tianzong's body. A damaged supreme artifact can be repaired as well. If it can be repaired, this supreme weapon can be snatched. The same thought appeared in the minds of those supreme existences at the same time. Then, one by one, they either stopped their travels or closed door cultivation. They directly smashed through the void and rushed to the Holy Tomb. The so-called snatch was not from the hands of others, but from the hands of other supreme experts. They all knew that other supreme experts would definitely be tempted by that incomplete supreme weapon. Oh no, the supreme weapon on Tianzong's body has been exposed. Almost at the same time, when the supreme weapon exploded, the super experts of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect who were far away in the other holy empires immediately received the news. At this moment, in the main hall of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect, dozens of experts emitting supreme auras were sitting there. On the main seat sat a yellow-robed youth. He was the sect master of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect, a super existence at the peak of the primal chaos ancestors' saint realm. The purple radiance Heavenly Rhoda Tower has been activated. The supreme weapon has been exposed. Sect Master, we must summon it back. A primal chaos ancestor, Saint Realm Great Elder of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect said in a deep voice. The purple radiance Heavenly Rhoda Tower is the greatest reliance of our Heavenly Light Divine Sect to become a holy land. For countless years, we have fed it with the souls of countless outstanding disciples in order to repair it. We can't lose it. Moreover, we can't let others know that the purple radiance Heavenly Rhoda Tower belongs to our Heavenly Light Divine Sect. Otherwise, it will bring disaster to our Heavenly Light Divine Sect, another expert said in a deep voice. The Heavenly Rhoda Tower was accidentally obtained by a senior of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect countless years ago. At that time, it was just a damaged supreme weapon that couldn't display its full power. At that time, the Heavenly Light Divine Sect decided to use the sect's outstanding disciples to nourish and repair the damaged supreme weapon. However, the supreme weapon was too ruthless. During the repair process, it would give some of its power back to the disciple, causing the disciple's talent to become stronger. However, in the end, the disciple's soul, mind, blood essence, and other things would be completely devoured by the supreme weapon. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect had already nurtured many people like Tianzong. Every generation didn't have any accidents. However, when it came to Tianzong, an accident happened. According to the estimates of the experts of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect, it would take another 100 generations for the supreme weapon to be repaired to its perfect state. After the supreme weapon was completely repaired, the Heavenly Light Divine Sect would rise and become a holy land for cultivation. One must know that there were many powerful holy lands for cultivation in the human race. However, only the true martial temple and the unparalleled palace had supreme weapons. As for the rest of the cultivation, they all had supreme artifacts to back them up. If they didn't have supreme weapons, they wouldn't be considered holy lands. If they wanted to become a holy land, they would need at least one supreme weapon. Otherwise, they would have supreme experts. How many supreme experts were there in the holy world? Therefore, those forces that wanted to become a holy land all wanted to obtain a supreme weapon. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect had worked hard for this for many years. They definitely wouldn't allow it to appear. First, recall the supreme weapon. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect's sect master shouted. Thus, everyone sat down cross-legged in the main hall and formed an array to recall the supreme weapon. Once the supreme weapon left his body, Tianzong would die. However, Tianzong was meant to be sacrificed. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect naturally wouldn't pity his life. If he died, then so be it. After all, the Heavenly Light Divine Sect still had many elite disciples. Any one of them could continue to nourish the damaged supreme weapon. What kind of treasure is that? What a terrifying aura. The supreme weapon's multicolored light appeared very suddenly, but it also disappeared very quickly. In a few breaths, it disappeared without a trace. After the five-colored sacred radiance disappeared, the sages that were suppressed by the supreme weapon finally reacted. They were all shocked. While they were puzzled, many people flew towards Murongyu from different directions. Even if they didn't know that it was the supreme weapon's aura, who wouldn't want to seize such a powerful saint weapon? At this moment, Tianzong stood up and looked at Murongyu with a ferocious expression. The power of time and the power of soul. Little bastard, I've underestimated you. However, your soul attack can't do anything to me. Let's see how you'll die. Tianzong looked ferocious as he pounced towards Murongyu. Murongyu's face turned solemn as he quickly retreated. If even his soul attack couldn't do anything to Tianzong, Murongyu really had no way to deal with him. However, he was very tempted by the supreme weapon in Tianzong's body. I must obtain this supreme artifact. It'll be very beneficial for you to become a supreme in the future. You can even treat it as your supreme weapon. Although Hichu suppressed his voice, the excitement in his voice was hard to suppress. Murongyu was a little helpless. He also wanted to seize it. However, he couldn't do anything to Tianzong now. The supreme weapon was still in Tianzong's body, so he couldn't do anything to Tianzong's soul. Just as Murongyu was thinking about how to kill Tianzong and seize the supreme weapon, he suddenly found that Tianzong's essence, qi, and spirit were rapidly fading away. In a short moment, Tianzong's strength and spirit were rapidly declining. Even Tianzong had turned from a handsome young man into a white-haired old man. His life force was rapidly fading away, but Tianzong didn't realize it. He still pounced on Murongyu ferociously. Oh no, someone's going to take away the supreme weapon in Tianzong's body. We must suppress the supreme weapon before it leaves. Quickly take him into the Hichu Luoshu world. Hichu suddenly shouted, his tone very anxious. Murongyu was taken aback. He no longer retreated, but rushed straight up. At the same time, he had already summoned the Hichu Luoshu and enveloped Tianzong. In the process, Tianzong's strength had fallen to the profound sage realm, and even rapidly fell toward the eternal realm. Finally, Tianzong also noticed the changes in his body. In horror, he no longer pounced on Murongyu. Instead, he turned around and flew toward the distance. However, how could Murongyu let him escape? With his swish, Tianzong was taken into the Hichu Luoshu by Murongyu. His realm had fallen to the eternal realm at this time, and he was no match for Murongyu at all. Chapter 1376. When Murongyu entered the Hichu Luoshu, he also took the little lowly inn. At the same time, Murongyu didn't forget to leave a few teleportation points nearby. In the next moment, with a thought, he appeared in the god world with Hichu Luoshu. Rumble. The moment Murongyu entered the god world, Tianzong's entire body shattered, turning into a bloody mist that exploded in the void. At the same time, a 9-story pagoda that flickered with purple light and traces of 5 colors appeared in the Hichu Luoshu. Then it expanded with the wind and instantly became the size of a small mountain. This was the incomplete supreme artifact, Purple Radiance Heavenly Rhoda. The Purple Radiance Heavenly Rhoda lightly shook and the bloody mist that formed from Tianzong's explosion, and even his soul, were all absorbed by the purple radiance heavenly rhoda. In the next moment, the purple radiance heavenly rhoda violently shook and directly shattered the void. It was about to escape into the void and fly away from the Hichu Luo Shu. However, how could Morong Yu allow it to escape? With a thought, Hichu Luo Shu suppressed it. An incomparably violent energy condensed the space within the Hichu Luo Shu. It was as if the purple light heavenly roar tower had crashed into an impenetrable barrier. It fell into the void and spun around chaotically. Heavenly Light Divine Sect. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect Master exclaimed in surprise. This was because they were trying to recall the purple radiance heavenly rhoda. In the beginning, it was very smooth, but later on, they were obstructed. As long as it's not a supreme, no one can stop us from recalling the supreme artifact. Everyone, let's put in more effort. We must retrieve the supreme artifact before the supreme arrives. The Heavenly Light Divine Sect Master shouted. Thus, the experts of the Heavenly Light Divine Sect worked together, rumble. The purple radiance heavenly rhoda exploded with purple light and five-colored holy light, then violently collided. Immediately, the void was shattered. Then, the heavenly purple pagoda transformed into a streak of purple light and was about to flee. Morong Yu snorted coldly as he activated the Hichu Luo Shu with all his might, once again suppressing the heavenly purple pagoda. On the other side, the Heavenly Light God Sect felt the purple radiance heavenly roaring pagoda being suppressed once more. Thus, the two sides began to confront each other. One side was recalling the supreme weapon, while the other side was suppressing it. However, the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. The Heavenly Dawn Divine Sect had sent all of their strongest experts to fight with Morong Yu. Although Morong Yu had the geographical advantage, he was in Hichu Luo Shu and the God Realm. However, he used the origin energy of the God Realm and Hichu Luo Shu to suppress it, although he was still able to suppress the supreme weapon for the time being. However, as time passed, Morong Yu would definitely lose. The reason why the Daybreak Divine Sect can control the Supreme Artifact is because their consciousness is still imprinted within the Supreme Artifact. The only thing we can do now is to erase the consciousness energy they've left within the Supreme Artifact. Otherwise, you won't be able to suppress the Supreme Artifact. Furthermore, if the other Supremes discover this, they will definitely take action, Hichu said solemnly. Morong Yu needed to snatch the supreme artifact from the hands of the Daybreak Divine Sect before the other Supremes discovered it. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would be wasted. Consciousness energy. Morong Yu's eyes flickered. With a thought, an enormous amount of consciousness energy and soul energy shot out, enveloping the entire heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda, and suppressing it. Bang! The moment Morong Yu's consciousness energy and soul energy came into contact with the surface of the heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda, they were fiercely repelled. Immediately after, strands of divine sense pounced towards Morong Yu's spiritual force and mental force with bared fangs and claws. This wasn't an instinct of the heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda, but the consciousness energy of the Daybreak Divine Sect's experts. There were at least a few dozen of them. They were all experts of the Daybreak Divine Sect. With so many people's consciousness energy attached to the pagoda, it was likely that they didn't trust anyone else and needed everyone to control it. After all, this was a supreme artifact. If it was controlled by a single person, who knew if that person would monopolize it? It was also because their consciousness energy was attached to the supreme artifact that they could control the heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda from afar. Right now, Morong Yu was going to fight against their consciousness energy. As long as he could erase their consciousness energy, his consciousness energy would be able to penetrate the supreme artifact. Then, the heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda would be Morong Yu's. Morong Yu sneered when he saw the mental energy bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. The thing he was least afraid of was consciousness energy. After all, consciousness energy and soul energy weren't directly related. However, the stronger the soul energy, the stronger the consciousness energy. Soul-devouring slash. Moronyu inwardly roared. He infused his soul force with his mind force and ruthlessly slashed at the divine sense that was charging at him. Pucci, that consciousness energy was extremely powerful. If Moronyu's consciousness energy was only the size of a pinky finger, then that consciousness energy was as thick as an arm. However, even though Moronyu's consciousness energy was small, it was extremely powerful. After a single slash, the consciousness energy that was as thick as an arm was shattered. In the end, it shattered inch by inch. Pucci, at the same time that the consciousness energy was shattered, far away in the main hall of the Daybreak Divine Sect in the Holy World, a Grand Elder of the Daybreak Divine Sect spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale. The consciousness energy he left on the heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda had been erased. This was also because he was careless. All of his consciousness energy had charged towards Moronyu and was directly erased by Moronyu. If he had left a trace of consciousness energy on the heavenly purple radiance, heavenly roaring pagoda, it wouldn't have been erased. Be careful, the opponent's consciousness energy is extremely powerful. The Grand Elder who had spat out blood was also a primal chaos ancestor sage. At this moment, he was warning the others. The opponent is at least a primal chaos ancestor sage expert. However, he shouldn't be an honorable. The others were also shocked. At the same time, they controlled their consciousness energy and charged towards Moronyu's consciousness energy. These people are very powerful. However, their consciousness energy is too far away from their true body. Their consciousness energy is at most at the ancestor sage realm. As long as we are careful, we should be able to kill them easily. Hichu said solemnly. Moronyu nodded and immediately ignited his primal chaos saint bloodline to strengthen Hichu Luoshu's power. At the same time, he took out the Yin-Yang cauldron and charged over. Meanwhile, little Lolita watched from the side. She was still unable to erase the consciousness energy of those people. Boom, boom, boom. The soul pool that was a few hundred miles in size began to surge violently. Streaks of soul energy rolled out like raging waves and rushed out of the soul space. Puffed, puffed, puffed. In the holy world, in the main hall of the Daybreak Divine Sect, the experts kept spitting out blood and opened their eyes with pale faces. There was a trace of fear in his pale face. Their consciousness energy had been erased by Moronyu. As a result, they were injured. The opponent's soul energy is extremely powerful. We can't hurt him at all. On the contrary, our souls were erased the moment they came into contact with him. The experts looked at each other with ghastly expressions. Now, we can only rely on the sect master and the others. I hope they can kill the opponent. Otherwise, our years of effort will be in vain. The experts began to heal their injuries as they looked at the Daybreak Divine Sect Master and the others. However, to their disappointment, they woke up one after another while spitting out blood. It was obvious that the consciousness energy they had attached to the Paragon artifact had been erased by Moronyu. As time continued to pass, the number of people fighting with Moronyu decreased. From over 10 people, there were only a few left. In the end, only the Daybreak Divine Sect Master was left. In the Hichu Luoshu world. At this moment, Moronyu was no longer controlling the Hichu Luoshu and the Yin-Yang Cauldron. This was because he was fully focused on the battle with the Daybreak Divine Sect Master. He didn't have any extra consciousness energy to control the other treasures. However, even so, Moronyu's divine energy was still being defeated bit by bit. The Daybreak Divine Sect Master's consciousness energy was simply too powerful. Even though they were separated by 2 worlds, he was still able to force Moronyu to retreat continuously. However, in the beginning, the Daybreak Divine Sect Master's consciousness energy wasn't that strong. What Moronyu didn't know was that the Daybreak Divine Sect Master was already fighting with his life on the line. He had even ignited his soul. He had no choice but to fight with his life on the line. This was because he was the only person whose consciousness energy hadn't been erased by Moronyu. The moment his soul energy was erased, the Purple Radiance Heavenly Roar Pagoda would have nothing to do with the Daybreak Divine Sect. This person is extremely powerful. I'm afraid he's already infinitely close to the level of self-esteem. If not for the fact that you're separated by two worlds and that you're the overlord of the God world, you wouldn't be able to suppress him. Otherwise, you definitely wouldn't be a match for him. Now, the two of you can only fight with each other. Whoever can last till the end will be the final winner, Hichu said solemnly. Moronyu rolled his eyes. He was already fighting with the Daybreak Divine Sect Master to a battle of attrition. At this moment, his soul pool, which was more than 250 kilometers in size, was almost empty. The moment his soul energy was depleted, his consciousness energy would return to its original state. At that time, he would lose control of the Purple Radiance Heavenly Roar Pagoda. Everything he had done for the past half a day would be for naught. While Moronyu was fighting with the Daybreak Divine Sect's experts, a large number of experts had gathered in the first layer of the Black Dragon Mountain Range. All of them had powerful auras. There were countless experts above the Profound Sage Realm. It was just that they hadn't discovered anything. That incomparably powerful aura is still here. Could it be that he directly broke through the sky and left? Some people frowned as they stared at the place where Moronyu had disappeared. Just trace it back to its source. Someone smiled faintly and waved his hand. Suddenly, a figure appeared in their line of sight. However, what surprised them was that those figures were very blurry. They couldn't see their appearances clearly. Moreover, the powerful artifact that had attracted them here was nowhere to be seen. It seemed like someone had concealed the appearance of Moronyu and the others. Or was it the ability of a supreme artifact, preventing anyone from tracing it back to its source? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.